Narrative text sets the scene at the Tirilia estate on a special, ominous night.
A nervous man in a suit acknowledges information while sweating in a dark room.
Kneeling before the women, the man confesses that Lady Lasita gave him his instructions.
The crowd gossips about Lady Carmen while she and another woman stand together in silence.
The black-haired girl asks for a reason behind the current situation with a shocked expression. The red-haired woman remains silent as flower petals fall around her stoic face.
Narrative text identifies Lady Carmen Lasita of Bellac as the Marquisate's only daughter.
The red-haired woman reveals that she has now become this person.
She reflects that her current body once belonged to the woman depicted in the portrait.
After a week of possession, a former office worker struggles with her new noble life.
She acknowledges her reincarnation into the body of a notorious and vicious villainess. When Carmen mentions bitter tea, her maid Tina begs for her life in total terror. A simple compliment from Carmen causes Melanie to tremble and plead for forgiveness. Asking for directions leads Paul the gardener to bow frantically while begging for mercy.
Narrative text describes the beautiful Lady Carmen as a legendary and feared villainess.
Carmen asks her maid's opinion on her appearance and chooses a specific necklace. A cheerful maid excitedly presents a jewelry box and praises the brilliance of the piece.
A close-up reveals an intricate gold necklace adorned with vibrant, teardrop-shaped red gems.
Carmen puts on the beautiful jewelry while questioning her current existence in this world.
A grand carriage drawn by 4 white horses travels down a sunlit path.
Carmen recalls how reading possession stories helped pass time during her former work commutes.
Narrative text describes the common tropes found within a typical possession story.
She thinks about the standard feel-good revenge plots usually found in such fantasy novels. These stories typically involve the protagonist falling in love with a very handsome man.
Carmen sighs, realizing she is unlikely to experience that kind of pleasant fantasy life.
She contemplates the specific reason why her current situation differs from the standard stories. Carmen and an older woman walk across a red carpet beneath a massive, glowing chandelier.
Nobles whisper and gossip as the 2 women enter the lavish and crowded ballroom.
Carmen looks surprised by the sudden attention she receives from the surrounding crowd.
The older red-haired woman leads Carmen through the hall as Carmen acknowledges her mother's presence. Count Cayenne greets the ladies, and the mother compliments the evening's splendid festivities.
The mother credits the high attendance of young guests to the Count's younger brother.
Count Cayenne smiles warmly as he listens to the older woman's polite flattery.
After the Count praises Carmen, her mother asks if the prince is also attending.
Carmen feels overwhelmed by the complex and flowery way people in high society speak.
The mother gives Carmen a sharp instruction, and Carmen obediently agrees to follow it.
Couples dance across the ornate floor while other guests watch the celebration from the sidelines.
Carmen enters a room and exchanges formal greetings with a group of other noble ladies. She realizes that she still lacks some of the original Carmen's memories. Carmen opens a door while resolving to figure out how to live her new life.
She spots someone familiar and tries to recall who the person might be. A black-haired woman sits alone, and Carmen recalls she is an orphan named Eleanor.
Carmen greets Eleanor, who responds with formal politeness while sitting on a red sofa. Carmen smiles and kindly asks Eleanor to refer to her by her first name. Eleanor respectfully declines the request, citing the difference in their social standings. Carmen laughs and tells her there's no need to be so formal during tea. Eleanor hesitantly begins to accept Carmen's request to use her first name. Carmen's eye twitches as she experiences a sudden and intense reaction to Eleanor.
A vision of the prince dancing with Eleanor triggers a sharp, painful memory for Carmen.
Looking at the dancing couple, Carmen's internal voice accuses Eleanor of stealing her prince. Carmen experiences a jarring memory of the prince dancing with Eleanor during a grand ballroom event. Carmen's past self fumes with rage, while the black-haired woman notes Carmen's fondness for her dress. Carmen stares blankly as she snaps back to reality while sitting across from the black-haired woman. Carmen realizes she just experienced a flash of the original Villainess's memories regarding her seating companion.
In an attempt to be kind, Carmen compliments Eleanor's dress, but her companion remains completely silent.
Eleanor suddenly demands that Carmen stop whatever she is doing, catching the red-haired woman off guard.
Carmen looks bewildered and asks Eleanor to clarify the meaning behind her sudden and sharp request.
As a waiter approaches their table, Carmen continues to press Eleanor for an explanation of her words.
A close-up shows the waiter's foot catching on the carpet, causing him to lose his balance.
The waiter trips, sending red wine flying through the air as Carmen and Eleanor watch in shock.
The red wine splashes violently across the room as the waiter completely loses control of his tray.
A close-up shows the broken wine glass and the red spill spreading across the ornate ballroom carpet. Eleanor stands up from the sofa as wine stains the furniture, though her own dress appears untouched. While Carmen stares in disbelief, Eleanor mockingly remarks on how splendid the unfolding disaster seems to be.
Eleanor stares coldly at Carmen, stating that this staged accident is not the first time such events happened.
Nearby nobles whisper about Carmen's past behavior as the red-haired woman wonders what they are talking about.
Eleanor leans in close and warns Carmen that she will eventually regret her current actions and schemes.
The black-haired woman maintains a stern and unforgiving gaze as she confronts her former social rival.
Carmen is left utterly confused, desperately wishing someone would explain the history she is supposed to know.
A promotional banner features both women together, highlighting the tension and rivalry between their two distinct personalities. High above the Bellic Marquise estate, the sun shines through the trees onto the Grand Manor's windows. During a private tea, Eleanor assumes there must be a misunderstanding regarding her presence at the manor. Carmen frantically denies having any romantic feelings for the prince while sweating under Eleanor's intense, suspicious gaze. Eleanor mentions she was surprised to be summoned to the house given their long-standing and bitter history. The black-haired woman sits stoically on the purple sofa, observing Carmen's unusual and nervous behavior with suspicion. Eleanor takes a calm sip of her tea, remaining guarded and unimpressed by Carmen's attempts at hospitality.
Eleanor bluntly reveals she regularly takes antidotes, rendering any poison Carmen might have used completely ineffective.
Carmen is completely speechless, her face frozen in shock at the extreme level of distrust her guest possesses. Eleanor points out they are drinking the same tea to highlight the futility of trying to poison her.
Eleanor speculates that the teacup itself could be poisoned, while Carmen realizes the depth of their rift.
Carmen clears her throat awkwardly, trying to find a way to navigate the incredibly tense social situation.
Putting her pride aside, Carmen pleads with Eleanor to finally put their past conflicts behind them today. Carmen offers a sincere apology for her past rudeness, leaving Eleanor visibly stunned by the unexpected gesture. Eleanor laughs mockingly, asking if this display of humility is just a new way of mocking her.
Eleanor stands up to leave, addressing Carmen by her full name with an air of cold finality.
Carmen watches as Eleanor dismisses the apology, claiming it must be for some insignificant and selfish reason.
A floating bubble emphasizes the core conflict, stating that the two women simply cannot coexist in peace.
Eleanor looks back one last time, accusing Carmen of being the sole reason their relationship is ruined.
Eleanor departs the room, leaving a stunned Carmen to reflect on the damage her predecessor has caused. At the Torrelia Estate Banquet Hall, carriages arrive as the evening festivities continue in the Grand Hall.
Eleanor stands alone by a window, reminding herself not to deny the truth of Carmen's past actions.
Carmen surveys the ballroom crowd, worrying that there are even more secrets she has yet to discover. A woman with silver hair, Lady Lamona, approaches Carmen and offers a warm and polite compliment. Carmen thanks Lady Lamona Gegant, who responds with kindness as they share a drink during the party. Lady Lamona blushes with joy, clearly happy to receive a friendly and polite response from Lady Carmen. Narrative text identifies the silver-haired woman as the daughter of a wealthy and respectable Viscount family. Lamona wonders about the interesting guests while Carmen reflects on the unusual kindness she is finally receiving.
Lady Lamona informs Carmen that the king and queen are also present at the evening's grand celebration.
As the Calambris family arrives, an older noblewoman acknowledges the presence of the newcomers at the event. Lamona excitedly asks if Carmen was specifically looking for information regarding the arrival of the Calambris family.
Lamona winks playfully while Carmen looks on with an expression of complete and utter bewilderment.
As the ladies stand, the sudden mention of a specific lord catches Carmen's immediate attention. A handsome nobleman with light brown hair stands elegantly framed by blooming white lilies. Lord Elon takes Carmen's hand, politely expressing his hope that she is enjoying the festivities. Carmen responds with practiced grace, though she privately admits she has no idea who he is. The nobleman smiles warmly, claiming to be honored that Carmen would show any interest in him.
Elon whispers about a secret matter, leaving Carmen sweating, worried about her predecessor's unknown schemes.
Carmen fumes as a narrative bubble describes the Duke's daughter facing a night of extreme humiliation. Elon bids her a wonderful evening, asking her to remember his name as they part ways. Beneath the starry sky, someone resolves to find the lady before a disaster can take place. Musical notes drift across the screen as a blonde woman performs on a grand piano. A woman in a purple gown stands as text speaks of following a path of tears. Floating text describes feelings of intense longing and jealousy trapped within symbolic white pebbles. The woman sings about her disappearance while an observer realizes they have finally found their target. Carmen watches the piano performance while someone wonders what she is planning with Lamona and Elon.
Guests gossip about Diana Calambris' elegance and her potential marriage to the prince, surprising Carmen.
The crowd confirms Diana is the queen's cousin, further solidifying the rumors regarding her royal engagement. Carmen joins the rest of the guests in polite applause following the musical performance. Diana Calambris approaches Carmen, noting how much the red-haired woman stood out from the stage. The two women stand together as Diana encourages Carmen to set aside her modest attitude. Carmen smiles warmly, expressing her desire to have a deeper conversation rather than just exchanging greetings.
Diana suggests moving to a quieter location to talk, and Carmen readily agrees to the proposal.
While sharing wine in a library, Carmen feels she is finally mastering high society's complex conversations. Diana notes Carmen's improved mood, leading Carmen to wonder if someone had spoken poorly of her.
Carmen laughs off the observation, internally noting that people often say very strange things about others.
Diana mentions that Duke Felix is a respectable man who tolerates being teased by the noble ladies.
Noticing an empty glass, Carmen politely points out that Diana needs a refill of her drink.
Diana asks if Carmen enjoys alcohol, and Carmen replies that she only partakes in small amounts.
Lamona enters the room and offers to call a maid, catching Carmen by surprise. Lamona Gigant smiles brightly as Carmen thanks her for the helpful and timely intervention.
The silver-haired woman walks toward the seated pair to join their private conversation.
Carmen looks up from the sofa and asks Lamona if something is currently troubling her. Carmen suggests ordering snacks, but Lamona insists they wait for the maid to arrive first. Diana confesses she previously held a negative bias against Carmen due to common social rumors.
Narrative text explains that Carmen was widely considered narrow-minded and obsessed only with her beauty.
Diana smiles, acknowledging that personal experience has proven the old rumors to be completely false. Diana praises Carmen's unmatched beauty, while Carmen internally agrees that such a perception is accurate. Diana invites Carmen to an exclusive royal gathering at the palace involving a boat ride. Carmen expresses her genuine delight at the invitation, though she remains somewhat nervous.
Lamona stands behind the sofa as a maid enters the room carrying a tray of drinks.
The silver-haired lady leads a maid into the room to serve wine to the guests.
An ominous purple bubble announces the arrival of the drinks as dark energy fills the room.
Lamona wears a chillingly sinister smile, causing an immediate sense of alarm for the observer. Carmen watches Lamona closely, sensing that something is fundamentally wrong with the woman's behavior. Carmen's eyes widen in realization as she begins to suspect a hidden and dangerous motive.
A faceless maid holds a tray of sparkling wine that glimmers with a suspicious intensity.
Carmen looks at the drinks with mounting dread, fearing that Lamona has poisoned the wine. As a hand reaches for a glass, a frantic internal warning begs them not to drink.
Carmen stands up in a sudden panic, startling both Lamona and Diana with her movement.
Eleanor appears at the doorway, having finally located the group amidst the sprawling manor. Eleanor questions Carmen's presence, noting that the red-haired woman shouldn't have been invited to this gathering.
The black-haired woman explains her invitation was through Prince Richard, questioning if this meeting is strictly for the royals.
Carmen worries that Eleanor's presence means she will be immediately blamed if any trouble occurs during the evening. Noticing her guest is standing, Carmen points out that Eleanor does not have a place to sit yet. As a woman walks across the room, she suddenly stumbles, her fancy white shoes losing their grip. Carmen falls toward the floor while wine glasses shatter, spilling their contents all over the expensive library carpet. Diana rushes to the fallen woman's side, while Carmen apologizes for the mess caused by her clumsy accident.
Carmen expresses deep regret to Lady Diana for the spilled drinks, internally wondering what caused the sudden mishap.
Carmen winks at Lamona, claiming her panic caused the carelessness, while Eleanor watches the interaction with a stoic expression.
Eleanor remains completely silent, an intense and dark aura radiating from her as she stares at the other women.
A peaceful night sky stretches over the manor gardens, where the moon shines brightly over the blooming flowers. Diana seeks an explanation for the earlier incident, but Carmen insists it is simply a matter of protecting her friend. Surrounded by blue roses, Carmen asks the blue-haired woman if she can forget the task she was given. Diana is visibly shaken, questioning if Carmen truly wants her to forget everything that has transpired between them recently.
Carmen wishes for Diana to return home safely, but Diana mutters that Carmen's behavior is actually quite terrible.
Diana refuses to abandon Lord Elon, stating that despite his low status, he remains a very important friend.
A decorative frame poses a chilling question about who is truly abandoning whom in this complex social web. Carmen realizes the situation involves more than just a drink, worrying about Lord Elon's current role in the scheme. Through her tears, Diana asks if Carmen is forcing her to speak about the secrets they both already know. Carmen demands to know what Lord Elon is doing, desperate to piece together the fragments of her predecessor's plans. Diana reveals that the nobleman is under the mistaken impression that she has romantic feelings for him. The blue-haired lady explains that Elon is meant to meet her alone, a prospect that deeply alarms Carmen. Carmen realizes her predecessor planned to drug Diana and use Elon to frame the woman for a fatal scandal. The red-haired woman understands the original goal was to ruin an engagement, leaving her frozen in absolute shock. Carmen grips Diana's arms, knowing that if the plan continues, Lord Elon's reputation and life will be destroyed. With an intense gaze, Carmen warns that neither of them will be safe if the truth comes to light.
Carmen declares she is going to Diana right now, willing to appear capricious to stop the impending disaster.
A mysterious man watches from the shadows of the garden as Carmen resolves to find and stop Lord Elon. Carmen urges Diana to help her find the nobleman, believing that stopping him will prevent the scandal from occurring. Carmen shouts for her companion to hurry while Diana runs through the moonlit forest to reach their destination. Lightning flashes across the night sky as Carmen is suddenly stopped by an unexpected presence in the dark garden. A tall man with long black hair emerges from the foliage, telling Carmen not to be so wary. The handsome stranger stands elegantly among the flowers, his purple eyes gleaming under the light of the moon. The man reveals he overheard her earlier, but claims he has no intention of provoking the famous Lady Carmen. He smiles charmingly at the red-haired woman, asking if she agrees with his assessment of their current situation. Carmen is struck by his casual tone, noting that very few men in this society would speak so informally. The red-haired woman becomes suspicious, wondering if this stranger's interest in her is genuine or part of a trap.
Carmen demands to know what he is accusing her of, but the man insists he meant no insult. As the stranger moves closer, Carmen pulls back, her body language reflecting her deep discomfort and mounting fear.
The long-haired man maintains a calm and composed expression, seemingly unaffected by Carmen's cold and defensive reaction. Looking away, Carmen admits she is already quite frightened by the man's presence in the deserted garden area.
The mysterious nobleman smiles at Carmen, his gaze fixed on her as the tension between them continue to grow.
Carmen emphasizes that a scandal would be fatal for her reputation, reminding him of her status as a noblewoman.
He acknowledges her fear, admitting it is natural for a woman to be scared of a tall stranger. The man steps back and raises his hands, asking if more distance would make her feel less threatened. Carmen insists he stay even further away, while he points out their need for a private, secret conversation. The stranger warns that they must talk privately, unless she wants others to overhear their secrets like before.
He mockingly accuses her of trying to ruin Diana Calambris's reputation by tricking an innocent man.
Carmen firmly denies his accusations, claiming he must have misheard her and that she remembers no such plan.
Carmen asks how he could imagine such a terrible scheme, while the man considers her response with a thoughtful hum.
Narration warns that Lord Elon will be finished if the Calambris family investigates and uncovers the truth.
The long-haired mage reveals he recorded the conversation, warning Carmen that she shouldn't lie to a magician.
He promises to ignore the situation as long as things resolve well and Lady Diana leaves safely.
Carmen questions why he approached her despite eavesdropping as he begins to offer an answer.
Standing among glowing flowers, the mysterious nobleman admits he simply wanted to see her face. An annoyed chibi-style Carmen dismisses the man and bids him a final goodbye.
Carmen returns to the grand ballroom where guests are socializing amidst flowers and music.
Breathless, Carmen hopes that things haven't escalated yet, relieved to have found her destination.
Eleanor stands with another woman, her cold and silent presence commanding attention in the room.
Carmen notices Eleanor's intense look and wonders what thoughts are crossing the black-haired woman's mind.
Diana Calambris calls out to Carmen, noticing her friend's sudden and hurried arrival.
Diana asks why she is out of breath, but Carmen insists that it is nothing important.
Carmen claims she simply hurried back, while Eleanor stands nearby with an unreadable and chilling expression.
Diana looks at Carmen with surprise, noting her friend's presence with a brief exclamation. Diana notes that the final song has already ended, and Carmen acknowledges the unfortunate timing.
Carmen laments missing the performance, while Diana suggests it can't be helped as Eleanor remains silent.
Carmen wonders where Lamona is and if Lord Elon has been locating Cat.
A pair of boots strides across the floor as someone calls out for Lady Eleanor. Eleanor and Diana look up, greeting the approaching Prince Richard with surprise and formal recognition.
Prince Richard appears, smiling as he comments on finally finding Eleanor's current location.
The blonde prince kisses Eleanor's hand as she explains she was waiting while listening to the music.
Narration describes the beautiful musical performance, confirming that it lived up to the surrounding social rumors.
From behind, Carmen watches the prince and Eleanor, overwhelmed by the sight before her.
Carmen reflects on the prince's high status and devotion, understanding why her predecessor fell for him. Carmen looks startled as she continues to observe the social interactions unfolding in the hall.
Diana appears sullen, her expression downcast as she stands amidst a background of dark flowers. Carmen hesitates to speak, looking at Diana with a concerned and uncertain expression. Carmen notes that Diana looks unwell and suggests they go to the garden for fresh air.
In a comedic chibi moment, Carmen grabs the surprised Diana and prepares to lead her away.
Diana stares blankly at Carmen, seemingly stunned by her friend's sudden and forceful invitation.
Diana agrees to head to the garden, while Carmen looks relieved that her plan is working.
As Carmen leads Diana away, someone tells them to wait for a hobbit.
Eleanor and Prince Richard stand together, leaving the other two women shocked by their sudden interruption.
The prince supports Eleanor's decision, while Carmen internally rejects the idea with mounting frustration. Eleanor questions if Carmen can't enjoy the crowd, making Carmen worry about Diana's potential heartbreak.
Eleanor glares with an intense and freezing stare that makes Carmen feel extremely uneasy.
Standing before blue flowers, Eleanor warns Carmen that she wouldn't recommend her current course of action. Eleanor reveals she regularly takes antidotes, making Carmen realize that she is suspected of poisoning the wine. A text bubble indicates that Carmen is remembering an important detail from earlier in the evening.
A flashback shows Eleanor watching the group, her suspicion evidently growing throughout the party.
Carmen panics, wondering if Eleanor has discovered the secret plan she intended to carry out.
Diana sighs and decides to join the group, while Carmen watches her with a concerned look.
Prince Richard asks Baroness Silesia to guide them to the tea room for further conversation. Standing on the balcony, Carmen screams internally that she was only trying to help Diana.
The scene shifts to show beautiful purple and white flowers glowing in the moonlight. A variety of elegant desserts and pastries are displayed on a tiered serving stand.
Seated together, Diana praises Carmen for being kind and considerate toward her since earlier.
Carmen smiles warmly, claiming she was captivated by Lady Diana's elegance during their meeting.
Prince Richard notes one cannot discern elegance so quickly, while Eleanor silently drinks her tea.
Diana scolds Richard for his rude comment, while the blonde prince keeps a cheerful expression. Carmen scans the room, wondering if Lamona has finally arrived at the gathering. Sipping her tea, Eleanor silently admires Lady Carmen's beauty regardless of who sees her. Carmen reacts with sudden shock to the unexpected comment while sitting in the key room. Eleanor questions Carmen about her close friendship with Lamona, expressing a sense of envy. Diana laughs lightheartedly while Carmen remains noticeably tense during their private social tea session. Eleanor shifts the topic, suggesting that Carmen has other attentive listeners besides her close friend.
Carmen is visibly startled when Eleanor implies that someone else has been eavesdropping on her.
The dark atmosphere intensifies as Eleanor specifically mentions Lord Elon as an example of interest. A memory surfaces of Carmen's pleasant interaction with the nobleman earlier in the evening's events.
Eleanor's gaze sharpens as she demands to know the details of Carmen's secret conversation earlier. Carmen gulps nervously, realizing that her original scheme might have already been discovered by Eleanor.
Clutching her dress tightly, the red-haired woman desperately searches for a believable way to respond. Lord Elon suddenly bursts into the room, urgently calling out for Lady Diana in panic.
Carmen identifies the approaching man as the key figure in the night's complicated social disaster.
Elon mentions her absence from their meeting spot, prompting Carmen to resolve to act immediately.
Carmen lets out a piercing scream to draw everyone's attention toward the confused young nobleman. Trembling, Carmen realizes this man is identical to the one she encountered in the garden.
The guests are horrified, asking if the man has done something inappropriate to Lady Carmen. Socialites condemn the man for his perceived rudeness while Elon tries to explain his arrival.
Carmen falsely accuses the man of harassment, claiming he followed her and demanded her attention. Internally, Carmen acknowledges the misunderstanding but justifies her actions as a necessary emergency measure.
Elon looks utterly baffled as he recalls previously calling for Lady Diana amidst the crowd. Overwhelmed by the social pressure, Elon runs out of the room while shouting a final apology.
Carmen stands up quickly as the chaotic situation begins to settle following the man's departure.
The concerned guests ask Carmen what is wrong after her sudden and dramatic emotional outburst.
A moment of deep realization hits Carmen as she considers the details of her encounter.
Carmen reflects on the garden stranger, realizing his face was actually different from Lord Elon's.
Stunned by the realization of her mistake, Carmen stands frozen while the other guests watch.
The red-haired woman feels a wave of guilt for falsely accusing an innocent man of harassment.
Eleanor resolves to apologize to the man if they happen to meet again in the future.
A towering clock stands under the crescent moon as the night's events continue to unfold. The mysterious mage returns to his workshop where a green-haired boy notes his early arrival. Smiling, the long-haired man explains he had no reason to stay with the nobles longer.
The green-haired assistant wonders if something pleasant occurred during the mage's time at the party. The mage admits he witnessed something quite interesting while observing the high society social drama.
He focuses his thoughts on a specific individual who caught his attention during the earlier confrontation.
Fragments of Carmen's confused thoughts regarding the two different men flash through her troubled mind.
The boy asks about their objective, but the mage remains cryptically noncommittal about his findings.
Carmen and Eleanor's names appear together as the hidden connections between them are briefly considered. The mysterious man wonders which of the two women is the true culprit behind the schemes.
Back in the safety of her bedroom, Carmen collapses onto the bed in total exhaustion.
In a comedic moment, Carmen laments the terrible nature of the night's many stressful events.
She finds comfort in knowing she protected Diana and successfully diverted the original social scandal.
Carmen understands that Diana's father would never ignore an investigation into a plot against her.
The woman realizes she would have faced severe consequences if the original plan had succeeded.
Carmen closes her eyes, trying to find some peace after the long and dangerous evening.
She reassures herself that her choices were necessary to survive the complex web of nobility.
In a moonlight room, Carmen prepares to hide a large suitcase to protect her final secrets.
She believes that concealing the item in this secret location will ensure her safety forever.
A hand reaches for the suitcase handle, signaling that the mystery is far from over. Carmen wakes up suddenly, reacting with a sharp start to her surroundings. Melanie approaches Carmen, concernedly asking if she is experiencing any distress. Moving quickly, Carmen urgently asks Melanie about the location of her clothing trunks.
Melanie explains that the trunks for different seasons are stored in separate rooms nearby.
Determined to find something, Carmen announces her immediate need to visit the dressing room.
Melanie tries to dissuade Carmen, reminding her of the late hour and her exhaustion.
Standing amidst roses, Carmen insists she is wide awake and ready for her task.
Carmen orders Melanie to have the servants move all the trunks from the dressing room. The scene shifts to a carriage wheel turning rapidly as the journey begins.
Melanie points out a loose decoration on Carmen's fan as they travel together. Reaching into a bag, Melanie reveals she thoughtfully brought a spare fan along.
Carmen expresses her gratitude while Melanie insists her kindness is simply her duty.
Melanie praises Carmen's gentle nature and her consistently fair treatment of the estate servants.
Carmen smiles warmly at her maid, expressing her genuine happiness at receiving such praise.
Recalling a past night, Carmen remembers searching the trunks but failing to find the hidden item. Carmen's memory of a dark room fades as Melanie asks if she is feeling all right.
Carmen admits to feeling nervous about the upcoming event and the prince's presence.
Melanie reassures Carmen that she looks radiant and will surely captivate the blonde prince. The morning sun shines over the grand estate where the social gathering is held.
Carmen arrives at the garden party, noticing the prince, Count de Roy, and Eleanor.
Prince Richard greets Carmen formally as she joins the elite group for the day.
Eleanor and the pink-haired girl sit at a tea table as Carmen approaches them.
Carmen quickly denies having a close relationship with the other socialites in the group.
The pink-haired girl stares in blank confusion at Carmen's blunt and speedy response.
Eleanor offers a small, elegant smile while observing the interaction at the tea table.
Eleanor contemplates the conversation, appearing thoughtful as the pink-haired girl speaks to her. A close-up reveals Eleanor's sharp, violet eyes fixed intently on a target of interest.
Carmen feels a mounting sense of dread, worried that Eleanor might say something damaging.
Eleanor clarifies that while they aren't close, she has no reason to dislike Carmen. Carmen turns as an imposing woman in a rich red gown approaches the garden.
A high-ranking royal woman smiles gracefully, her presence commanding the attention of the group.
Eleanor and Carmen perform deep bows to greet Her Majesty with the proper formal etiquette.
Prince Richard gestures welcomingly, informing the royal guest that they have been expecting her arrival.
The group moves to a boat, which glides across the sparkling blue water of the lake. Carmen enjoys the luxurious boat ride, finding the sheer extravagance of the moment heart-racing. From the shore, Melanie waves goodbye, unable to join the nobles on the royal boat.
A small, pink-haired boy stares intensely at Carmen, catching her attention on the boat.
The boy reaches for Carmen's dress while Eleanor watches the curious interaction with interest.
Carmen embraces the young boy, tenderly remembering her own younger brother from her past life.
The small child looks up at Carmen, innocently sharing that he enjoys eating soup.
The boy clarifies his favorite soup while Prince Richard watches them with a stern expression.
Richard suddenly interrupts, sharply questioning Carmen's intentions toward the young royal child beside her.
The blonde prince stands up abruptly, his face contorted with anger and an accusatory glare.
Carmen panics, wondering if she committed a serious breach of etiquette by touching the child. Prince Richard demands to know what Carmen intended to do to the defenseless royal boy. Trembling with shock, Carmen explains that she was simply playing with the young man.
Richard invokes a dark past event, asking if Carmen has forgotten her previous actions against Dew.
Stepping closer, the prince warns that her crimes against royalty will never be truly forgiven.
Richard questions her lack of guilt, leaving the confused Carmen to wonder about his hidden meaning. The blonde prince looms over the red-haired woman as the atmosphere becomes chillingly tense.
Prince Richard warns Carmen that he only tolerated her past actions for her father's sake.
The prince threatens Carmen with severe consequences if she ever approaches the royal children again.
Richard glares intensely at the red-haired woman, promising not to let her off easily.
Carmen trembles violently, overwhelmed by the sheer terror of the blonde prince's focused hostility.
Gasps of shock escape Carmen as the weight of the prince's accusation hits her.
Seated on the boat, Carmen clutches her arms while shivering under the prince's cold gaze.
The atmosphere turns freezing as Carmen struggles to maintain her composure amidst her mounting fear.
King Richard approaches the group, urgently asking Carmen how she ended up falling into the lake.
Prince Richard bows deeply to the king, taking full responsibility for the unfortunate accident.
Carmen realizes the situation is dire as she remains silent and dripping wet.
The high-ranking royal woman calls out to Lady Carmen with a look of deep concern.
Carmen recalls the terrifying sensation of sinking deep into the dark, cold waters of the lake.
Apologizing to the queen, Carmen falsely claims she simply lost her balance and fell in. Internally, Carmen notes that the prince's attempt to take her hand caused the sudden fall.
Eleanor wonders if Richard's glare is directed at her for trying to assist the wet woman.
Her Majesty warns Carmen to be cautious, reminding her that the lake's depths are quite dangerous. Carmen feels humiliated, comparing her disheveled and soaking appearance to that of a drenched rat.
Looking at the water, Carmen laments the disastrous turn of events while thinking of Melanie.
A voice calls out to Carmen as she attempts to dry herself off. An attendant conveys the queen's suggestion for Carmen to change into dry, comfortable clothing. Still shivering, Carmen tries to wring out her wet hair while waiting for a solution. The attendant offers Carmen a place to rest, prompting the woman to suspect a hidden motive. Carmen closes her eyes, doubting whether the offer is genuine kindness or a polite dismissal.
Boats drift across the sunlit lake as the royal social gathering continues in the distance.
Melanie spots Carmen from the shore and calls out to her with a look of worry.
Running toward her mistress, Melanie frantically asks if Carmen actually fell into the deep water.
Melanie whispers a question, wondering if the prince was responsible for Carmen's sudden soak. Carmen explains her legs gave out and expresses a need for a robe and shelter.
Back on the boat, Prince Richard sits silently with a stern expression on his face.
Eleanor watches the prince from across the boat, her expression unreadable as the water ripples.
Eleanor chides the prince for his lack of assistance and his immediate display of open hostility. Richard scoffs at Eleanor's kindness, admitting that Carmen genuinely unnerves him and deserves no respect.
Richard recalls Carmen's flawless status before her unruly personality led her to harm young Dew.
The prince remembers the political necessity of her family's support while deciding her fate is sealed.
Eleanor maintains her composure, thinking to herself that every person must answer to their own conscience.
Richard relents with a sigh, though his frustration regarding the situation remains clearly visible.
Looking into the lake, Eleanor reflects on the strange behavior she witnessed during the encounter. Melanie stands loyally by Carmen, though the narration suggests Carmen will never truly understand that devotion.
The maid assists Carmen near the palace stairs, both unaware of the darker plots unfolding. A chilling message appears against a blood-spattered background, warning of the consequences of Carmen's threats.
Reflections in the water hint at a coming retaliation between the two women as shadows deepen.
Now dry and in new attire, Carmen enjoys tea while surprised by the unexpected hospitality.
Carmen admires the luxurious interior of the room where she has been taken to recover.
The butler explains the building was recently renovated according to the specific orders of the queen. Captivated by the elegance, Carmen asks the butler for permission to explore the renovated building.
The silver-haired butler politely opens the large doors to allow Carmen into the main hall.
In a comedic daze, Carmen is dazzled by the sparkling chandeliers and the sheer grandeur.
Carmen praises the beauty of the architecture before realizing something feels slightly off.
Standing alone on a long red carpet, Carmen wonders why the butler has suddenly vanished.
Recalling a basic survival rule, the red-haired woman decides to stay put until someone returns.
A gray shoe steps firmly onto the polished floor of the grand hallway.
Carmen turns around with a bright, curious smile to see who has left. Her expression quickly shifts to utter bewilderment as she recognizes the person standing there.
A long-haired man in elegant white and purple attire greets her with a knowing look.
Leaning in, the black-haired man asks Carmen if she remembers their previous encounter.
Carmen stammers nervously as the mysterious noble continues to approach her with confidence. He questions her sudden silence, while Carmen retorts that she is stunned by his boldness.
The man laughs, teasingly asking if she finds his casual tone of voice offensive.
Carmen sighs deeply, realizing the man currently holds all the power in their conversation. He encourages her to speak casually as well, claiming it will make their interaction easier.
Looking around the vast room, Carmen feels trapped in a dangerous place with no escape.
The man leans down and reminds Carmen that they have already shared a secret together.
Carmen panics, her face contorting with dread at the mention of their shared secret. A sudden surge of intense confusion washes over Carmen as she processes his strange words. Her mind reels in shock, unable to comprehend the logic behind the man's bold claims. Carmen raises her hands defensively, pleading with the man to stop speaking so suggestively. He smiles, suggesting that sharing secrets makes them friends, though Carmen strongly disagrees. The man insists on their connection, but Carmen flatly rejects any notion of being friends. Carmen stares at him with suspicion as he makes a playful, mocking sound. She demands to know his motives, but he insists he simply wants to be friendly.
Carmen worries that he is trying to gain even more leverage over her delicate situation.
She calls him untrustworthy while he finds her skepticism amusing despite his own attractive features. The man claps his hands together, explaining that his magic operates on a unique set of mechanics.
A bright light glows from his fingertip as he describes a spell for recalling distant memories.
Carmen realizes with a start that physical attacks are useless against a skilled magician like him.
A decorative frame appears, formally introducing the man as a member of the Dallas family. Carmen looks around frantically for a weapon, wondering if he has just cast a spell. The man reveals his full name is Tan Dallas, a title that carries significant weight.
Carmen recalls that the Dallas family is a prestigious noble house that rarely appears in public.
She asks if he works at court, but he playfully deflects the question back at her.
Glints of light sparkle off his high-quality garments as he stands before her.
Tan Dallas performs a graceful bow, requesting that the noble lady remember his name well. Carmen crosses her arms, secretly admitting to herself that the man is exactly her type. Image 434. Admiring his elegant features, Carmen asks what transpired during her earlier confrontation with Prince Richard.
Carmen recalls her interaction with the prince and Eleanor, falsely claiming that nothing happened.
Tan Dallas questions her, noting that the prince's intense hostility toward her was clearly visible.
Carmen blinks in blank confusion, unsure of the meaning behind the term killing intent. Internally, Carmen wonders what kind of person Prince Richard truly is beneath his royal status.
Her face is partially obscured by decorative lines as she reflects on the prince's actions.
The scene shifts to an overview of the sunlit tea party where various nobles socialize.
Eleanor watches from her seat, noting the strategic social placements of the other guests nearby.
Carmen takes a bite of dessert, finding the palace cake to be exceptionally delicious.
A hand lowers a teacup as a nearby noblewoman agrees with Carmen's assessment of the food.
The guest remarks that Carmen has now officially earned the title of the social outcast. Declaring themselves to be at the table of leftovers, the brown-haired woman stands to depart. Eleanor remains seated, her expression unreadable as she watches the other woman walk away.
Carmen asks what she should be holding back, and Eleanor suggests she already knows.
Tan Dallas explains that any woman being publicly intimidated has a right to defend herself.
He notes that the prince's overwhelming presence was likely an attempt to force her into submission. Carmen trembles as she tries to grasp the true meaning of the psychological pressure described.
Tan Dallas explains that killing intent is a technique used to make the weaker party cower.
Tan Dallas questions Carmen's own innocence, suggesting she might be just as guilty of misconduct as the prince.
Tan recalls the prince's murderous aura on the boat, visualized by a dark and oppressive cloud of killing intent.
Carmen contemplates the political consequences of a potential scandal which would require a formal explanation to her family.
The black-haired man notes that Carmen was visibly startled during her sudden and unfortunate fall into the lake.
Carmen accuses the man of being a stalker, while he claims he simply witnessed her legs giving out.
Tan Dallas acknowledges that the prince reached out to help, yet he insists the encounter cannot be easily dismissed.
Carmen remains silent, her expression shifting to one of calm and focused determination as she processes the man's words.
Eleanor sternly warns Carmen that she will not allow any of her current actions to turn into a scandal.
Sipping her tea, Carmen internally observes Eleanor's aggressive social maneuvering and wonders about the other woman's true strategy.
Eleanor questions whether the prince had his own valid justifications for his recent display of open hostility toward Carmen.
Leaning in, Carmen confidently asserts that she anticipated Eleanor would attempt to defend the prince's questionable behavior.
Images of hands sinking into deep water accompany a demand for the real reason behind the prince's violent actions.
Framed by vibrant flowers, Carmen tells Eleanor to go ahead and defend the prince if that is her wish. Eleanor gazes at Carmen with deep disappointment, stating that the woman truly hasn't changed her personality at all.
Carmen retorts by asking if Eleanor's judgment is based entirely on her own personal biases and unfair assumptions.
An intense spark of psychological hostility erupts between the two women as they lock eyes in a tense standoff.
With a cold and focused gaze, Eleanor declares her absolute resolve to survive whatever retaliation Carmen might plan.
Eleanor calls Carmen a shameless liar, while Carmen denies having any interest in the prince or the current situation.
Eleanor reflects on the future, convinced Carmen's obsession with Richard will lead her to commit many terrible deeds.
Rising from her seat with sharp determination, Eleanor vows to stop Carmen from fulfilling her predicted dark destiny. Carmen stares blankly, completely bewildered by the strange and dramatic accusations Eleanor has just leveled at her. Clenching her fist, Carmen struggles to understand the logic or meaning behind Eleanor's aggressive and confusing claims. Resting alone, Carmen finally realizes she has found a significant clue regarding the strange world she now inhabits.
Shattered glass panels reveal Carmen's epiphany. Every piece of evidence points to her being inside a book world.
Carmen clutches her hat, finding the idea of being trapped in a fictional world to be utterly and completely ridiculous.
A wide view of the kingdom illustrates the narrator's claim that this entire realm is a completely virtual construction.
Carmen considers the possibility that Eleanor is also a reader who has entered this fictional world from elsewhere.
Standing back to back in a starry void, Carmen suspects Eleanor might originate from the same real world as her.
Back in the present, Carmen sits quietly in her room, reflecting on her complicated situation over a cup of tea.
Dressed in elegant attire, Carmen politely acknowledges the presence of the noblewoman she must now call mother.
The Marquis's wife observes that Carmen has become unusually reclusive and hasn't left her room much lately.
Internally, the red-haired woman feels a deep sense of guilt whenever she addresses the Marquis's wife as her mother.
Carmen recalls her arrival, the panic of her parents, and her decision to remain strategically silent about her true identity. Narrative text explains that Carmen must continue pretending to be the original lady until her life returns to normal.
The Marquis's wife stands over Carmen, asking with deep concern if her daughter is still feeling physically unwell.
Startled, Carmen sweats as the older woman asks if she remembers their previous conversation regarding her noble family duties.
Fidgeting with her hands, Carmen nervously asks for clarification on what specific duties her mother is currently referring to.
The Marquis's wife stares intensely, reminding Carmen that being a Lasita comes with non-negotiable family and social obligations.
Stylized artwork emphasizes the weight of family rights and the heavy noble burdens that accompany the Lasita name.
The mother chides Carmen for taking her duties lightly, expressing frustration that her daughter still hasn't improved her behavior. In a comedic chibi moment, Carmen looks dejected as her mother scolds her for her persistent and selfish habits. A wave of genuine sadness washes over Carmen as she wonders if the original lady felt this same family pain.
Thinking of her past life, Carmen realizes parental anger and expectations are the same across every world and family.
Carmen sighs deeply, claiming her recent lack of commitment to her noble obligations was not a deliberate act.
The Marquis's wife admits she misinterpreted Carmen's isolation as anger toward Lady Diana rather than an actual illness.
The older woman offers a rare and gentle smile, seemingly relieved by her daughter's explanation and current calm state. Tan Dallas laughs, teasing Carmen about her failure to have a meaningful conversation with the prince before falling.
Sitting beside her mother, Carmen flatly states that she had no desire to speak with the prince at all.
Carmen dismisses the prince as not being her type, though Tan Dallas's face unexpectedly flashes through her mind.
Looking out the window, the Marquis's wife asks if Carmen remembers their reaction to her desire to marry Richard.
Narrative text discusses the complexities of political marriages and identifies a potential romantic target. The red-haired mother confirms a previous arrangement while Carmen reflects on hearing this information first. The Marquis's wife excitedly claims that Carmen's beauty is enough to win the prince's heart. A door swings open as a maid arrives to interrupt the family's private conversation.
Saria, a maid with brown bangs, announces Lady Jekkin's arrival and asks for permission to enter. Carmen admires Sarija's grace, while her mother instructs the maid to help Carmen change her clothes.
Sarita complies while Carmen internally wonders if she could ever maintain such elegance while performing chores.
Turning toward her mother, Carmen asks for the specific reason behind Lady Jagunt's unexpected visit.
The older red-haired woman smiles warmly, explaining she has prepared a perfect topaz just for Carmen.
Vibrant, multifaceted gemstones fall through a sparkling purple void, symbolizing the luxury of nobility.
Carmen stretches as she wakes up, preparing for a day filled with her new noble responsibilities.
Narrative text describes Carmen managing her routine work through social tea parties and various daily preparations. Sipping wine at a social event, Carmen reflects on how repetitive learning helps her act naturally. The sun shines brightly over the sprawling estate as another day of noble life begins. Bursting into the room with excitement, a silver-haired woman named Lamona loudly greets Carmen.
In a comedic moment, Lamona energetically hugs Carmen, who notes the other woman's persistent high energy. Carmen observes that her request for a man named Doherty to send a gift went well.
Walking through the palace, Carmen addresses the silver-haired woman by her name, Lamona. Carmen expresses her gratitude to Lamona for organizing a fun gathering to improve her current mood.
Groups of noblewomen socialize on elegant couches within a grand sunlit salon filled with luxury decor.
As they walk across the carpet, a voice from nearby calls out to Carmen to get her attention.
Lamona promises Carmen an interesting day, mentioning that a remarkably handsome man is expected to arrive.
Carmen wonders if this new man could possibly be more handsome than the magician, Tandalis.
Lamona offers a knowing, gentle smile as she continues to lead Carmen through the social event.
Narrative text introduces an incredibly handsome sage and a priest named Mabel as the invited guests.
Carmen asks for more information regarding the priest and the relationship between the temple and tower.
Lamona reacts with joyful enthusiasm to Carmen's request, suggesting they move to a quieter location.
Lamona explains the political landscape, noting how rulers grant noble titles to mages to maintain power.
Lamona describes the king's strategy for balancing the court and mentions the rare appearance of a sage. Decorative text and a golden crown highlight rumors regarding the superior capabilities of the Tower of Sages. Carmen asks for the specific qualifications and magical abilities required for someone to be titled a sage. Using a classroom visual, Lamona explains the requirements of elemental mastery, specialized fields, alchemy, and peer recognition.
Carmen is surprised by the explanation as she continues her walk with the silver-haired noblewoman.
Lamona playfully places a finger to her lips, signaling for Carmen to keep their conversation discreet. Carmen suddenly grabs Lamona's wrist, stopping her because she has one more important question to ask.
Lamona smiles kindly and assures Carmen that she is welcome to ask anything she wants to know. Carmen asks if Lamona knows which specific social salons Lady Eleanor has been visiting lately.
Lamona cheerfully agrees to investigate Eleanor's recent social activities and locations immediately for Carmen.
The scene shifts back to the crowded social gathering where various nobles engage in lively conversation. A guest mentions hearing about Carmen's terrible boating experience and asks for more details about it.
Hiding her face behind a fan, Carmen claims she was simply distracted when the incident occurred.
Carmen explains that her legs gave out on the small boat, causing her to fall into the water.
A noblewoman is horrified by the story and asks if anyone was there to help her. Carmen claims the prince didn't notice, leading the surrounding nobles to gossip about his shocking negligence.
The guests express outrage that a skilled knight like Prince Richard failed to ensure a lady's safety. Carmen defends the royals, stating it wasn't their fault and that the queen showed genuine concern.
A noblewoman remains unconvinced, insisting that Carmen should receive a formal apology for what happened. Framed by roses, Carmen insists she doesn't want to trouble the royal family over such a triviality. Lamona watches Carmen with a worried expression, reflecting on her knowledge of Carmen's past reputation.
Fanning herself, Carmen admits she would prefer for the embarrassing incident to be forgotten by everyone quickly.
A sophisticated blue invitation with a white ribbon rests on a table, signifying a royal event.
Walking through the corridor, Carmen hopes her mother's dress selection meets the queen's high standards. A servant addresses Lady Carmen while pouring tea into a delicate cup at the palace.
The queen expresses her sincere regret for not showing Carmen more consideration in their previous meeting.
Carmen graciously accepts the hospitality, noting she heard the rumors but managed to find rest anyway. The queen insists that as the hostess, she should have ensured Carmen enjoyed her stay.
The queen bows her head slightly, offering a formal apology for the lack of better hospitality.
Carmen expresses her honor while admitting her own carelessness caused a great deal of trouble. The queen praises Carmen's transformation, noting she has become a humble, considerate, and fine young lady.
During their tea, the queen asks if Carmen would like to spend more time at the palace. Carmen is internally shocked, immediately rejecting the idea of living in the royal palace.
Carmen reflects that she isn't royal bride material while the queen observes her with a smile.
The queen confirms that Lady Diana is the intended candidate for the prince's future bride.
Carmen mentions hearing that the queen's chief lady-in-waiting, Countess Cornale, has been feeling quite unwell.
The queen explains she originally intended for Diana to serve her, valuing lineage and proper education. Carmen is pleased to have passed the queen's initial evaluation despite her lack of understanding. The queen contemplates Diana's impeccable lineage while weighing the social obligations of the royal court.
Carmen comments on the importance of gaining experience and building networks in high society at a young age.
The queen laughs delightedly, feeling they understand each other perfectly regarding social graces and self-care.
The queen formally invites Carmen to serve as her temporary lady-in-waiting until Errol's eventual return.
A loud announcement that Prince Richard has arrived suddenly interrupts the private tea session.
The queen grants him entry while Carmen internally groans at the prospect of meeting him again.
Richard bursts in, asking his mother if she has forgotten his prior requests regarding his preferences.
Richard expresses frustration that Carmen is present when he specifically recommended Eleanor for the position.
The queen firmly rejects his interference, asserting her right to choose her own lady-in-waiting personally.
The queen apologizes for Richard's rudeness, while Carmen notes the conflicting opinions between the royal family.
The queen asks Carmen to wait in the next room while she speaks privately with the prince.
Eleanor is visibly shocked to learn that the queen is meeting with Carmen at the palace.
Richard comforts Eleanor, promising her that his mother will eventually grow fond of her.
Eleanor expresses her gratitude to Richard, noting that his consistent love is her only solace. Eleanor decides to be patient while Richard leaves to speak with the queen about the situation.
The queen announces a re-evaluation test between Carmen and Eleanor for the lady-in-waiting position.
Carmen views the test as an opportunity to confirm if Eleanor is also a world possessor.
With a bright smile, Carmen tells the prince to inform Eleanor they should work hard together.
The queen and the prince are left speechless by Carmen's unexpectedly cheerful and cooperative attitude.
Surrounded by flowers, Carmen maintains a confident, knowing smile while the prince looks on in anger.
Tandalis returns to his tower and is greeted by a green-haired boy asking about experiments.
The green-haired boy informs the magician that the extraction process has been successfully finished.
The boy asks if it rained, but Tandalis explains he was soaked in a blue dragon's nest.
Tandalis turns away in a huff, declaring that the entire endeavor was a total waste of time.
The green-haired assistant asks who currently has the item, but the magician has no information.
Clenching his fist, Tandalis vows to feed the person to a dragon with his own hands.
Servants prepare Carmen for her day while she wonders if this event happened in the original story.
Looking in the mirror, Carmen reflects on the queen's original dislike for her while thanking her maids. A butler informs Carmen that Lady Lamona is waiting for her in the manor's reception room.
Carmen enters the room and warmly welcomes Lamona, who is excited for their meeting. A maid brings an official letter from the royal family to the two noblewomen in the salon.
Carmen reads the card, which commands her to appear at the palace before the first examination day.
Carmen compares the sudden early morning royal summons to the exploitative tactics of a shady company.
Lamona explains that the queen is likely evaluating Carmen's morning preparations as part of her test.
Lamona enthusiastically asks if Carmen is excited, but Carmen internally admits she has zero motivation for the honor.
Lamona chuckles warmly while Carmen looks on with a sweat drop, appearing quite puzzled and mentally drained.
Carmen observes Eleanor, wondering how someone from the countryside could have integrated into high society so quickly.
Seated elegantly, Carmen questions how the other candidate has already mastered such refined and complex courtly manners.
The red-haired woman wonders how a country girl possesses such well-versed expertise in the intricacies of palace etiquette.
Carmen notes that mastering such skills usually requires extensive specialized training, even for highborn ladies like themselves.
The scene transitions to a sun-drenched garden where pink roses bloom brightly among the lush green foliage.
A handsome attendant leads Carmen, who muses that the palace seems to select its staff based on appearances.
The grand palace interiors are shown, featuring a lavishly decorated red and gold room with a piano.
Maids and ladies-in-waiting move through the opulent palace suite, preparing for the day's upcoming royal tasks.
The queen greets the candidates, telling them they have arrived and asking if they know their specific duties.
Eleanor and Carmen stand ready as they begin the morning preparation tasks for Her Majesty at the palace.
Bowing gracefully, Carmen humbly attributes her impressive courtly knowledge to the excellent education provided by her mother.
The queen instructs Carmen to begin her demonstration, inviting her to show off her dressing skills immediately. The queen praises Carmen's surprising skill, noting that dressing someone else is vastly different from dressing oneself.
Carmen offers a humble smile, stating it is a great honor to receive such praise from the queen.
Detailed text describes how Carmen meticulously assisted with every garment, from the shoes to the final gown.
Carmen carefully drapes a thin scarf over the queen's shoulders, completing the elaborate morning outfit for Her Majesty. Carmen's internal exhaustion peaks as she realizes she might accidentally be overperforming for the chief lady-in-waiting role.
Eleanor remains composed and silent as Carmen finishes the final adjustments to the queen's royal morning attire.
The candidates stand before the queen, who sits elegantly while observing them both with a discerning look.
The queen addresses the dark-haired candidate, asking Lady Eleanor if there is something currently the matter.
Eleanor steps forward with a polite smile, mentioning she brought a gift for the queen to see. The queen asks if the matter can wait as she is currently in the middle of changing. Eleanor suggests that her gift will be useful for the heat, given the inconvenience of frequent garment changes.
The queen is genuinely impressed by the beauty of the intricate lace item Eleanor has presented to her.
Carmen reflects on the torture of wearing a fichu in heat, while the queen finds the idea great.
Finding the suggestion interesting, the queen agrees to try on the gift Eleanor has provided right away.
Eleanor presents the lace gift with a polite smile, stating she prepared it especially for this royal meeting. A close-up reveals the delicate, dark red lace details of the fichu Eleanor brought for the queen.
The queen walks with her new accessory while Eleanor follows behind, the scene filled with a sparkling atmosphere.
Narrative text highlights the queen's observation of the skillful execution shown by the two high-born noble ladies. Looking at the candidates, the queen wonders internally about the immense amount of practice they must have undertaken. Eleanor and Carmen express their honor, with Carmen adding it reflects her wish for peace in court. The queen shifts the conversation, asking Lady Carmen if she has a personal interest or liking for flowers. Carmen glances toward a nearby arrangement of vibrant red roses as she considers the queen's sudden question. With a polite and slightly nervous smile, Carmen confirms to Her Majesty that she loves flowers dearly.
The queen reflects on how beauty enriches the heart and commands Ariel to arrange the finest roses later.
Bowing respectfully, the lady-in-waiting named Ariel confirms she will fulfill the queen's request for the rose arrangement.
Carmen expresses her interest, asking the queen which specific rose variety appears most beautiful in her royal eyes. The queen claps her hands in delight, admitting that she is naturally drawn to things that stand out.
Eleanor makes a bold request, asking if she can present a truly special rose as a gift later. The queen is curious, questioning if Eleanor truly knows of a rose more special than her current collection.
Eleanor clarifies her intent to offer such a rose as a token of gratitude if she finds one.
Bowing, Carmen adds that presenting flowers from both of them as a token would be a great honor. The lady-in-waiting Ariel whispers to the queen that the flower-based proposal sounds like a wonderful idea. The queen declares that selecting the best rose will be the next trial for the two potential ladies-in-waiting.
Red roses frame the queen's announcement that the winning flower will serve as the centerpiece for the tea party.
Lamona enthusiastically asks Carmen for all the details about the meeting, while Carmen confirms she finished the tasks.
Seated in her manor, Carmen reflects on how Eleanor's gift worked well while she handled the primary dressing duties. Carmen feels annoyed by Eleanor's calculated gift strategy, labeling the other woman's move as sly. Recognizing the lace was a pre-made accessory, Carmen realizes Eleanor was fully prepared for the meeting.
The queen notices the tension and asks what is wrong while wearing the gifted fichu.
Highlighting the garment's fashion potential, the queen predicts the wide lace design will soon trend. Carmen wonders how Eleanor sourced the handmade lace so quickly in this low-tech society.
Suspecting outside help, Carmen questions if Eleanor's guardian or a specific household provided the accessory.
Carmen reconsiders the situation, realizing that Eleanor might have been preparing for this role for years. Seeking a competitive edge, Carmen asks her mother about the most valuable rose variety currently available. Lamona mentions a rumored expensive rose variety, though Carmen finds the high price tag quite daunting.
Learning that an even newer variety is debuting soon, Carmen feels the pressure of the challenge.
Determined to stand out, Carmen decides she needs a flower with a unique color and shape. Carmen acknowledges the difficulty of the task, knowing the queen already possesses every known rose variety. Suspecting a trap, Carmen believes Eleanor intentionally suggested the rose challenge to corner her.
Carmen discusses the tight 3-day deadline for finding a centerpiece rose with her close confidant.
Joking about her options, Carmen briefly considers crafting an artificial rose out of thin gold.
Inspired by her own joke, Carmen has a sudden realization that an artificial approach is viable.
3 days later, Carmen arrives at the palace dressed in a deceptively simple yet elegant style. Prince Richard spots Carmen and calls out to her while she struggles to keep her composure.
Acting dismissive and irritable, the prince tells Carmen to proceed to his mother's dinner party already.
Maintaining a polite facade despite her irritation, Carmen agrees to follow the prince's abrupt command.
Eleanor arrives looking radiant, immediately drawing a warm and admiring greeting from the infatuated prince.
Seeing Carmen being ignored by the prince, Theodore kindly offers to escort her to the banquet. The 4 highborn guests are formally announced as they enter the palace's grand dining hall together. The group enters the lavishly decorated banquet room, which is prepared for an evening of luxury.
The queen welcomes everyone and praises the exquisite quality of the flowers brought to the palace.
Eleanor bows respectfully as the queen prepares to unveil the centerpieces selected for the royal table. Presenting a rare black rose, the queen claims the mysterious flower bloomed within her own gardens. Nearby guests whisper in awe and skepticism, wondering if the legendary black roses are actually real. Prince Richard stares in disbelief, questioning if the flowers before them are truly the fabled black roses. The queen is stunned by Carmen's multicolored roses, marveling at the red, green, and blue petals. Carmen playfully attributes the color change to the queen's beauty while keeping her coloring method secret. Reflecting on her modern knowledge, Carmen realizes she is a scientific pioneer in this historical world. Deciding to protect her advantage, Carmen resolves not to reveal her simple flower dyeing technique to anyone. Deeply impressed, the queen declares Carmen's unique rose to be the most marvelous gift she's received. The formal dinner continues in the opulent hall as the guests enjoy the high society atmosphere. A noblewoman expresses her desire to form a marriage alliance with Carmen's family, the Lasita clan. Carmen overhears guests gossiping about the prince's lack of manners and his questionable recent behavior. Young Lady Diana pulls Carmen aside to invite her for a private visit after the party. Diana mentions her brother Paul is napping, though she jokingly insists the boy is not cute.
Carmen reflects on local inheritance laws while discussing the pleasant nature of having a younger brother. The narrative explains the kingdom's strict inheritance laws that favor sons over daughters for land ownership. The queen turns the conversation toward succession, asking if the Belak family has chosen an heir.
A guest confirms that the decision regarding the Bellic inheritance has not yet been finalized.
A lady notes that whoever marries Carmen will gain the prestigious title of the serving count.
The queen jokingly encourages Charlotte to send a marriage request if she wants Carmen as kin. Looking over the guests, the queen remarks on the many splendid young women currently in her court.
A guest asks what kind of suitor would be suitable for the promising young lady Diana.
The conversation outlines the high standards of grace and social standing required for Diana's future husband. Otto joins the conversation with a smile, suggesting that his own elder brother might be suitable.
Carmen evaluates Otto, wondering if his matchmaking attempt is better than dealing with the difficult Richard.
Carmen feels a deep sense of relief now that the guests have finally stopped discussing her. Diana happily enjoys her dessert while Carmen sits beside her, feeling completely out of place. Lady Hutchinson mentions the lace fichu, and Carmen recognizes the noblewoman as being Theodore's mother.
Charlotte offers a friendly proposal to use informal names, reminding Carmen of Theodore's kind smile.
Carmen agrees to the request, privately noting that Charlotte seems to have a very positive impression. A guest urges everyone to move past small talk and asks about the popular lace garment. Dark narration introduces the lace fichu, setting a mysterious tone for the upcoming fashion discussion.
Charlotte looks skeptical while Eleanor and the prince share a laugh in the background scene.
Charlotte explains that a regional stroke of luck allowed Jaden to outproduce the royal court. The text notes that Eleanor is actively trying to gain the queen's favor through trends. Carmen considers the situation with a thoughtful expression, yet she remains unable to reach a conclusion.
Charlotte agrees with the statement, nodding as the conversation at the banquet table continues forward.
Carmen points out that noblewomen from the Jaden region don't actually wear the lace ficus. Charlotte is visibly taken aback by Carmen's revelation regarding the true fashion habits of Jaden.
While the others enjoy the party, the blonde prince looks frustrated by the current atmosphere.
A lady reveals that Eleanor recently visited the devalued company to gather specific information. A hooded woman is shown discreetly entering a building, suggesting a secret or private meeting.
Charlotte wonders if the countess is worried about Eleanor losing her position in the capital.
Looking ethereal, Eleanor is surrounded by flowers as the narrative questions the origin of the garment.
Carmen suspects that Eleanor may have specially manufactured a new product to gift the queen.
Madame Hines sighs, explaining that the devalued company currently has a very long wait list.
Carmen turns to her mother, questioning if the trendy item can be purchased elsewhere instead. Carmen's mother insists that transparent lace is currently the most popular trend among the nobility.
Carmen observes her mother's intensity and reflects on the massive profits the lace company must earn.
The red-haired woman mentions the name Leo Winshead while looking frustrated with the current situation.
The narrative explains how a lowborn seamstress successfully gained total control over the major company. Carmen's mother angrily declares she refuses to wear anything made by someone who embarrassed her daughter. Carmen makes a firm decision to stop wearing the fichu despite it being a popular trend.
Carmen stands confidently without the accessory, earning a note about her choice to disregard it.
Floating in a dreamlike space, the narrative warns Carmen about her behavior as a potential princess. Carmen sighs, stating she has no intention of becoming a princess and will dress as desired. A fan snaps shut as an angry voice scolds Carmen for missing a significant opportunity. Carmen reflects on her lack of interest in the prince and his obvious devotion to Eleanor. Carmen's mother rants about the significance of the marriage, calling her daughter a former tomboy.
Grabbing Carmen's hands, her mother begs her to marry Richard to change her entire life.
A bright flash of memory recalls a claim that Carmen once loved the prince deeply.
Carmen cries as she resolves that a marriage without love is a struggle she cannot accept.
Carmen shouts a refusal, declaring she has absolutely no feelings of any kind for the prince. Floating text questions whether Carmen truly loved the prince or if it was her parents' ambition. Modern and historical versions of Carmen stand back to back, highlighting the internal shift in her soul. The woman feels she could return home if she closed her eyes, but accepts her reality.
Carmen realizes that in this world, the prince acts as if Eleanor is the only woman.
Standing in a lavish room, Madame Hines calls out to the mother figure named Carla.
Carmen mentions that both she and Eleanor are scheduled to perform in the queen's upcoming play.
Madame Hines claps her hands in excitement, surprised that Carmen will participate in the royal play.
Carmen asks to borrow Madame Hines' strength to ensure they both look their best. The narrative describes the queen's plan to confront the king's mistress through a public theatrical performance.
Carmen expresses her awe, acknowledging the incredible honor of participating in such a significant royal event.
Carmen looks into her mirror as she confirms the play will debut in 3 weeks' time. Carmen recounts a tale of a man seeking a ghost and finding the virtue of trust.
Carmen notes Haley Esheganen's fame in a past role and asks her mother's future part.
Carmen declares her role as the allegory of trust spirit while admiring her reflection. Madame Hines expresses her ecstatic congratulations to Carmen for performing at the Grand Royal Palace Theater.
Carmen requests that Madame Hines create custom costumes for the play as the Queen commanded.
Carla instructs Madame Hines to make Carmen stand out without ever outshining the Queen herself. Carmen ponders the specific character that the Queen will choose to portray in the performance.
Carmen reflects that the Queen will undoubtedly secure the role of the story's young protagonist.
Carla questions Carmen's wardrobe choices, and Carmen admits she's still testing various potential outfit designs.
Carmen asks Madame Hines to uncover Eleanor's fashion plans to help her prepare a counter-strategy.
Observing their identical expressions, Madame Hines agrees to help and notes how similar they appear.
Carla urges Carmen to capture the hearts of the prince and the entire kingdom through her performance.
Carmen contemplates her strategy for the upcoming royal theatrical performance with a determined look.
Carla notices her daughter's sudden change in mood and asks if she has devised a plan.
Carmen arrives at Workshop Street, continuing her quest to prepare for the Queen's royal play. The grand exterior of the Leonard Trading Company signals the next stop in Carmen's journey.
Carmen is formally introduced to the company staff as Lady Carmen Lacida from Belak territory. A polite employee bows and offers to escort Carmen inside, noting they were expecting her arrival.
A purple-haired textile expert presents the fine, lightweight white fabric Carmen had previously requested.
Madame Hines introduces Madame Colette, describing her as the finest textile expert in all of Delia.
Carmen admits her lack of expertise in fabrics and asks Madame Colette to teach her everything.
Madame Colette suggests using the white fabric for a petticoat, but Carmen rejects the idea.
Carmen specifies her desire for a white outfit made from muslin, silk, or high-quality linen.
Madame Colette looks worried as she explains that white dresses are currently out of fashion.
Carmen stays focused on her plan, knowing Eleanor will likely be monitoring her every move.
Carmen visualizes her dress, realizing she is running out of time and must begin production immediately.
Carmen asks Madame Colette if she has any knowledge regarding the dress Eleanor is currently making.
Madame Colette reveals that Eleanor purchased rare black and deep teal silk reserved for the royals.
Narrated text explains a skilled Jadon priestess is secretly working for the rival to Valet Trading Company.
Carmen thanks Madame Hines for the intel, while the noblewoman notes Carmen's growing pores.
Stepping from her carriage, Carmen is asked by her attendant if her feet are in pain.
Carmen claims she must endure the pain for beauty's sake and that walking is quite healthy.
Carmen dismisses her attendant's concern, walking briskly toward her destination despite the rough city streets.
Despite the physical toll of her heels, Carmen finds the bustling city atmosphere very entertaining.
Carmen impulsively decides to buy new shoes for herself and her attendant as a reward.
The attendant is impressed by how smoothly Carmen can walk despite the uneven cobblestone roads.
A young apprentice boy bumps into Carmen and apologizes as he drops a single shoe.
Carmen assures the boy she's fine and asks if he is currently working as an apprentice. The boy nervously confirms his role as an apprentice while holding the shoes he dropped.
The attendant scolds the boy for his rudeness as he sprints away without a proper greeting.
A mysterious voice disagrees with Carmen's assessment of the busy boy, catching her completely off guard.
Carmen jumps in shock as Tan Dallas suddenly appears, begging him not to scare her.
Tan Dallas observes that Carmen is consistently startled whenever they cross paths in the capital.
Carmen is stunned to see her personal pouch containing her seal and money in his hand.
Handing back the items, Tan Dallas warns her to keep such valuable belongings in a safer location.
Carmen thanks him while wondering in confusion exactly where she could have dropped her personal pouch.
Tan Dallas stands confidently, mocking Carmen for being much more careless than he had originally anticipated.
Carmen becomes annoyed by his persistence, reminding him that she already expressed her gratitude. Tan Dallas leans in close to reveal that the boy stole her pouch and he stole it back.
Chibi Tan Dallas teases Carmen for being oblivious while still marveling at her incredible rainbow rose.
Carmen puzzles over Tan Dallas's motives, downplaying his help as nothing special.
The purple-haired man smiles broadly while asking if she used magic. Carmen finds him incredibly strange and clarifies that magic was not involved.
Tan notes her unusual nature, prompting Carmen to worry he's sensing her internal shift as she deflects his questions with a story.
Carmen reflects on her poor first impression of Tan, still uncertain if he is a trustworthy ally.
Despite their lack of closeness, Carmen wonders how he successfully retrieved her stolen pouch from the thief. Tan explains he used prank magic on the boy, terrifying Carmen by suggesting he should have cut the apprentice's arm off instead.
He questions why she shows such deep concern for a thief who deserves harsh consequences. Carmen defends the boy's actions as survival, reflecting on the responsibility of the upper class toward the starving poor.
Claiming he is short on time, Tan Dallas waves a charming farewell to Carmen.
Carmen's attendant asks about the man's identity while Carmen notes his high noble status.
Eleanor greets Madame Hines with a polite smile, receiving thanks for her recent kindness.
Eleanor asks about the deadline for her order as Madame Hines urges a quick preparation.
Eleanor recalls her past life, crediting pure luck for her meeting with a skilled priest.
Planning to recreate past events, Eleanor decides it is time to try on her dress.
Surveying her accessories, Eleanor feels confident her plan will succeed once the queen sees her.
Eleanor models a striking black gown while Madame Hines predicts it will cause a sensation.
Believing their fashion will be incomparable, Eleanor instructs Madame Hines to prepare a large stock.
Touching the dark fabric, Eleanor insists that everything must be finished by the scheduled day.
Looking elegant in her lace-trimmed black dress, Eleanor prepares to dominate the upcoming event.
Carmen reads her script, finding the 3-week timeline for the play to be quite suspicious.
The script details a story about labor, gratitude, and the empty longing for unknown places.
Eleanor rehearses her lines, proclaiming that true value is achieved through consistent and continuous effort.
Noble women gossip behind their fans, impressed that Eleanor has already memorized her entire part. Watching the rehearsal from her seat, the brown-haired queen gives Eleanor a subtle compliment. Carmen secures high-quality white fabric and a new supply of brown lace-up shoots.
Eleanor bows to the queen, praising the royal portrayal of a dignified country youth.
The queen expresses her anticipation for how Eleanor will portray the virtue of trust. Eleanor humbly hopes her acting will not diminish the brilliance of the queen's own performance.
Rehearsing her role, Carmen delivers a line about choosing to cherish sorrow over empty illusions.
Carmen realizes the play is a jab at the king, encouraging him to ditch his mistress.
The queen looks forward to the show while her companions note Eleanor's impressive acting skills.
Following the practice, the queen urges the participants to maintain their high energy for the debut. The queen explains the stage layout, noting that green curtains will hide the second-floor gallery.
A man praises the forest setting while Carmen remains confused by his overly dramatic interpretation.
The narrative details how the curtains will open to reveal the protagonist discovering a mystical castle. The group shifts their location to the garden to continue the royal tea party.
A lady asks the queen if the male role's simple costume is still being manufactured.
The queen describes the simple countryside attire, leaving Carmen stunned by the bold fashion choice.
The ladies are shocked by the royal fabric used for the role, questioning Eleanor's supporting status.
A noblewoman turns to Carmen, asking for her thoughts on her own upcoming performance.
Carmen explains she is designing an outfit that captures the essence of the spirit of trust.
Carmen defines trust as a bright virtue that only resides within a truly humble heart.
The older women express their deep amazement at Carmen's profound understanding of her character. Carmen claims her inspiration came naturally while she was studying the queen's brilliant script. Gazing at her reflection in her tea, Carmen reflects on the important lessons in the script.
Eleanor questions Carmen's specific interpretation of trust residing within a humble heart. Carmen calmly clarifies that her description is based on the themes presented in the play.
Eleanor looks distressed, admitting she feels completely unprepared for the role compared to Carmen.
The other noble women look on with concern, asking Eleanor what she feels is missing.
Eleanor explains that the script identifies integrity as a virtue found within a generous heart. Carmen notes the importance the queen placed on integrity and trust while discussing the cultivation of virtues.
The narrative explains how hardship can lead to dishonesty, while vanity prevents genuine trust in others.
The noblewomen discuss the interesting interpretation of the script while enjoying tea and various sweets.
Eleanor suggests that if integrity is compassionate, it should be portrayed through a noblewoman's attire.
Carmen realizes that despite the script's depth, the final outcome often depends on the clothing chosen.
Carmen questions whether a humble heart is a realistic way to portray trust in the plan.
The queen agrees that the portrayal must be genuinely modest to effectively convey the intended message.
Eleanor wonders how Carmen will respond, noting that lace and silk are unfitting for the character.
3 weeks later, the Grand Theater is packed with an audience for the royal debut. The king, princes, and the princess attend the performance alongside many other royal family members.
Musicians play their instruments as the stage crew makes final preparations for the play to begin.
The attendant advises the queen to imagine the audience as pumpkins to help calm her nerves. The queen is confused by the suggestion and asks for an explanation of the pumpkin method.
The attendant explains it allows the performer to focus on their acting without fearing the audience.
She clarifies that viewing the audience as pumpkins temporarily is the key to impressing them later. The queen remains puzzled by the advice as she waits behind the scenes for her cue.
The queen reflects on how interpretations of a performance vary, and everyone sees things very differently.
The attendant encourages her, stating that the audience will be moved by her wholehearted effort. The queen expresses her gratitude for the supportive words as she prepares to take the stage.
With a determined fist, the queen resolves to give her absolute all to the performance today.
Peeking through the curtains, Eleanor directs the queen's attention to someone specific in the seated audience.
They spot the master with his mistress, Haley Ashegany, finding his choice of companion quite unbelievable.
The queen observes that mistresses are mere status symbols until they start aiming for a wife's position.
The queen confidently declares that after the play, no one will dare mention the mistress's name. The queen assures Eleanor that she will also receive quite a bit of attention today.
Eleanor enters wearing a dark lace-trimmed gown, claiming her cloak was merely used as a windbreaker.
The brown-haired lady prepares to assist someone by holding up a portion of their costume.
Carmen reveals her elegant white dress, admitting she feels slightly embarrassed by its simple design.
Eleanor and the queen are left completely speechless by the sudden reveal of Carmen's innovative outfit.
Carmen smiles warmly, urging the group to go out and captivate the audience with their show.
The queen leads Carmen and Eleanor onto the stage to begin the highly anticipated royal performance.
A noblewoman expresses her profound amazement at the unexpected and innovative fashion displayed on the stage.
She praises Carmen's dress as innovative, noting how it appears simple yet remains completely captivating. Carmen worries her dress looks shabby, but the lady praises the silk shawl for covering her arms.
The lady asks Carmen where she managed to find silk with such beautiful and intricate pleats.
Carmen explains she happened to find the fabric while looking through old clothes earlier that morning.
Carmen notes the fabric is from Delia and offers to introduce the supplier to the lady.
She identifies Madame Hines as her dressmaker and recommends her for finding high-quality, suitable fabrics.
The lady requests that Carmen call for Madame Hines for her before they leave the theater. Carmen walks away from the conversation, leaving a lasting impression after the group's successful performance.
Carla tells Carmen she did well, then asks when she learned to make such an expression.
Carla quickly clarifies that she simply meant Carmen has a truly beautiful and charming smile. Carla notes that everyone is praising Carmen for her noble elegance and her captivating, mysterious aura.
Visual details highlight the carefully designed sandals and high-quality hair accessories that completed the ensemble.
Carmen smiles happily to herself, relieved that she managed to pull off her plan so successfully.
The king and queen stand together, with the king formally addressing Carmen as she approaches them. Carmen and Carla bow politely as they offer their formal greetings to the king and queen. The queen stands gracefully amidst a backdrop of roses, radiating dignity following the successful royal play.
Carmen looks surprised, realizing she really wanted to ask the queen a specific question.
Eleanor stands amidst the crowd, her black lace-trimmed gown commanding silent attention from the surrounding nobles. Bowing respectfully, Carmen offers her honor to the queen, while secretly noting that their eyes definitely met during the exchange.
A man with long dark hair stands with his arms crossed, observing the event from the shadows of the stage.
With a faint smile, the dark-haired man thinks to himself that Lady Carmen is truly as captivating as he imagined.
Shifting through the throng of faceless nobles, the long-haired man makes a quiet departure from the center of the gathering.
Richard approaches Eleanor, asking for her honest opinion regarding the unconventional attire Lady Carmen wore for the performance. Richard remarks that the white dress looks almost like underwear, but Eleanor disagrees, calling it stunning and noting the play's surprising impact.
Looking at her jewels, Eleanor laments that her fichu is not eye-catching enough and she still lacks sufficient funds for her plans.
While Carmen reflects nearby, Eleanor grits her teeth in frustration, frantically wondering if someone saw her or if she made a mistake.
The party continues with Carmen and Eleanor standing apart, each lost in their own thoughts amidst the crowd of faceless attendees.
The brown-haired queen and Carmen share a pleasant, smiling conversation as they face one another under the bright ballroom lights.
Eleanor takes a deep breath and places a hand on her chest, resolving to keep her emotions in check for her next move.
With a cold and focused gaze, Eleanor stares ahead, silently declaring to herself that the conflict is far from over.
Returning to her chambers, Carmen stretches out her arms while Carla praises her for doing exceptionally well during the day's events.
Carmen lets out a tired sigh of gratitude as she kicks off her floral-patterned shoes and relaxes her weary feet.
Carla suddenly remembers something important and approaches Carmen with a piece of paper, prompting a curious look from the lady.
Carmen takes the mysterious sheet of paper from Carla, wondering to herself what the contents of the message could possibly be.
Slumping back, Carmen gazes at the paper with confusion, asking aloud what it is as she begins to read the writing.
Carla points toward a dress decorated with yellow roses, highlighting a specific detail that catches Carmen's attention.
Carmen questions the presence of paper in the clothing, while the narrative identifies it as a strange and unsettling short story.
Pondering the text, Carmen wonders if it is an essay and remarks on the boldness of whoever dared to write such words.
Carla smiles and claims the paper is completely blank, but Carmen looks horrified, insisting that writing clearly fills the entire page. Carla places a hand on Carmen's forehead, expressing concern and wondering if the lady has suddenly developed a fever.
Carmen looks deeply distressed and asks Carla if she seriously only sees a blank piece of paper on the sheet.
The narrative recounts a tragedy where Carmen's jealousy ruined a nation, showing her in chains, asking if her actions were wrong.
Carmen notes that none of the other clothes are fit to wear, wondering if the paper was intentionally hidden to conceal something.
Holding her head, Carmen tells Carla to go ahead, reassuring herself that no one will suspect a thing about the paper.
Carmen tries to destroy the evidence, realizing the paper will not tear and remains miraculously dry even when she tries to wet it.
Staring in shock at the flickering flames, Carmen discovers that the mysterious piece of paper simply refuses to burn.
Panic sets in as Carmen realizes she must hide the paper immediately to prevent anyone else from discovering its secrets. Narration details the ruin of the Lasita family and the transfer of their title as a red-haired man stands before a shattered crust.
A close-up reveals Carmen's hands trembling violently as the lingering emotions from the script's dark themes begin to overwhelm her.
Desperate for answers, Carmen rummages through a trunk, but the narration confirms that no other pages were found in the room.
Framing Eleanor amidst flowers, the text describes a revenge cliché where she is portrayed as the story's true and noble heroine.
Laying in bed, Carmen is labeled by the narrative as the villain who is destined to suffer the worst possible ending. Carmen reflects on her inability to change fate, noting that even if she wants to be good, the heroine does not believe her.
Forced to smile through her tears, Carmen asks herself what she should do now that her path seems so hopelessly fixed.
Thinking back, Eleanor recalls seeing similar events 100 times, concluding that Carmen must have come from the future to explain things.
Eleanor observes that while Carmen arrived only 6 months ago, she is already suspiciously familiar with all of the capital's high etiquette.
Looking at her reflection, Eleanor notes that Carmen's words perfectly match her assumption about the other woman's secret origin. Eleanor laments not reading stories where regressors forgive their enemies, while Carmen and Richard appear in the background of her memories.
Looking stunned, Eleanor wonders if her current situation might be different from the cliché climax she originally expected to face.
A close-up shows hands nervously fluttering the paper as Eleanor questions if the climax of the story is already passed.
Eleanor questions the logic of the book she is in, wondering if Carmen escaped or if her own regression was meant for revenge.
Against a backdrop of blood, the text explains Eleanor views Carmen as a wicked woman she would regress time repeatedly just to kill.
A dark silhouette of Eleanor looms over a terrified Carmen, with the narration stating the heroine has prepared the perfect trap. Carmen contemplates her options, wondering if Eleanor would even believe her if she claimed she wasn't the original villainous Carmen. Eleanor reflects on how her own personality began to change the exact moment that a new soul possessed Carmen's body.
Looking back at Richard, Eleanor recalls how her original self had once managed to attract the blonde prince's genuine attention.
Now recognized in philosophy and fashion, Eleanor acknowledges that as a regressor, she and the original Carmen were destined to be enemies.
Close-up details reveal the exquisite white fabric that serves as the foundation for Carmen's next dress.
A pure white teapot rests on a table, emanating a brilliant and ethereal glow under the lighting.
The ladies gather around, expressing wonder at the breathtaking beauty of the glowing and ornate teapot.
The queen identifies the white teapot as a treasure brought to her from a very distant place. Carmen asks if it was custom-made, but the queen confirms it was simply brought from far away. The queen explains she kept the set for a long time until Carmen's dress revived old memories. Carmen feels deeply honored to have revived such memories and thanks the queen for showing her the set. Setting down 4 cups, the queen admits she rarely uses the set because it is too precious.
Carmen wonders if a queen could find possessions too valuable, internally noting that price shouldn't matter for love.
The queen closes her fan and agrees that the price of an item truly does not matter.
With a direct gaze over her fan, the queen offers the precious tea set to Carmen as a gift. Carmen is stunned, nervously admitting she held her breath for fear of breaking the delicate and expensive object.
Framing an elegant dress, the queen promises to invite Carmen whenever she wishes to use the tea set.
Other ladies express their jealousy, questioning if the queen's trust puts Carmen on the list of potential consorts.
Carmen finds the idea of living under strict 24-hour surveillance to be an entirely impossible way to live. Carmen collapses face first onto her bed in a state of utter and complete physical exhaustion. A maid enters with refreshments, observing that the lady looks completely spent after her long and busy day.
Carmen looks up as the maid asks if she managed to receive the tea set from the queen. The maid admires the set's snow-like beauty and asks where such a beautiful and unique container is from. The maid lined a box with velvet to safely store the set deep within Carmen's wardrobe. Gazing thoughtfully into the distance, Carmen silently questions whether she truly made the right decision regarding her actions. The maid announces that a woman claiming to be the dressmaker Madame Hines is waiting to be let in.
Carmen explains that since Madame Hines' work is currently popular, she wanted to try out the designs herself. Text explains the queen avoids empire dresses as the design is considered far too bold for her.
Madame Hines assures Carmen the outfit will be stunning and attract a significant amount of attention during the event.
Assistants follow Madame Hines into the chamber, carrying a heavy trunk filled with various dressing items.
Both Carmen and her maid are visibly shocked by the overwhelming number of items the dressmaker has brought along.
Madame Hines insists that Carmen must stand out, explaining they brought only the finest fabrics available for her.
Carmen notes she must wear the fabric given by the queen and ensure it blends with the design.
Madame Hines commands her staff to hurry and bring out the high-quality muslin fabric sourced from Neteria immediately.
The staff busily moves around the ornate bedroom, preparing everything needed to get Lady Carmen ready. A woman whispers that Lady Van was recently spotted at the De Valette Trading Company and at the temple.
Close-up details show Carmen's lips and butterfly earring as she asks for more information regarding the recent roses.
Carmen offers a polite thanks while clutching her gown, appearing focused on the tasks still ahead.
Carmen and her maid walk through the grand palace corridors where they unexpectedly encounter a blonde man.
The blonde man addresses Lady Lasita, and she responds by noting the pleasant weather to Prince Otto.
Prince Otto asks if she is visiting his mother, as narration ponders if Carmen would be happier liking him. Carmen confirms she is attending dinner and asks if His Highness will also be joining the gathering tonight.
Prince Otto explains he will be escorting his grandmother, whose glowing and dignified silhouette appears in the background. Carmen reflects that while the grandmother rarely speaks with the queen, she never misses any major royal events.
Carmen remarks that with such an outstanding grandson like the prince, the grandmother must certainly feel very proud. Prince Otto blushes and expresses how deeply honored he is that Lady Lasita would think that way.
Carmen smiles and says she's just being honest about his reputation for being consistently kind and polite.
With a polite bow, Prince Otto informs the lady that he will now be taking his leave for now. Carmen notes it has been a pleasure as she and her maid watch the young prince depart.
The maid looks suspicious and asks if it's possible that the prince might actually be interested in the lady. Carmen waves off the maid's suspicion with a confident smile, asserting there is absolutely no way that's true. A floral frame depicts Eleanor with two princes, stating both men are definitely only interested in her.
The maid rushes back into the room, urgently telling Lady Carmen that they need to get dressed quickly. Carmen agrees to move as fast as possible as she prepares to start getting ready for Gare.
Melanie informs Lady Carmen that a new gift has just arrived from Lady Hutchinson. Carmen is puzzled why Theodore's mother sent a bribe while the maid presents cosmetics.
A collection of golden cosmetic bottles in heart-shaped jars sits elegantly amidst white roses.
Carmen is wide-eyed with wonder as she stares at the shimmering and luxurious gifts. Carmen meticulously prepares for the evening, deciding she must thank Lady Hutchinson for the set.
Carmen asks for her fan, and the brunette maid quickly hands the accessory over.
A sudden, sharp vibration causes Carmen's eyes to widen in shock and immediate alarm.
The entire room shakes violently during a sudden earthquake, sending furniture and belongings sliding.
Carmen clings to her seat and frantically wonders if she is experiencing an actual earthquake.
Melanie screams in terror and clutches her head as the violent tremors finally subside.
Carmen's broken fan lies on the floor while she worries if the tea set survived.
Carmen and her maid peer nervously into the storage box to check the precious porcelain.
Gazing at the shattered white cup, Carmen demands to know what her maid is doing.
Melanie takes the blame, but Carmen insists the sudden, unannounced earthquake was the true cause.
The tearful maid offers to sell her belongings, but the red-haired lady forbids such measures.
Carmen ponders the situation, recalling a specific restoration trick she once saw on a television. Carmen explains they can repair the broken porcelain by soaking it in warm milk overnight. Carmen warns her maid not to discard any fragments before they check the results tomorrow.
An ornate crystal chandelier sparkles brilliantly against the ceiling of the grand royal banquet hall.
Several noble ladies gather in the ballroom, all notably wearing the trendy white empire waist dresses.
Carmen sips her drink while curiously wondering how Eleanor will react to the current fashion.
The trading company will prosper as long as the queen maintains her authority.
Two women discuss the wealth being amassed, doubting it will ever be enough to satisfy her.
Eleanor stands with a companion, maintaining a calm exterior while successfully hiding her inner unease.
Two blonde noblemen in white uniforms stand together engaged in a private conversation during dinner. A noblewoman at the dinner table questions why Harsel Aspen failed to attend the gathering.
The veiled blonde woman confirms that she heard the same report regarding his continued absence. An older lady notes that Aspen is likely busy, though his attendance is still expected.
The elderly woman smiles while remarking that Aspen is merely cunning, rather than being truly clever. Carmen looks distressed, silently pleading for help to avoid upsetting the queen over the teacups.
The bearded man seated at the head of the table praises Aspen's undeniable palace intelligence. Prince Otto agrees with the king, acknowledging the high value of having Aspen in the palace.
The older woman asks Prince Otto to identify the most talented young person currently present.
A montage shows the various noble guests at the dinner table awaiting the prince's answer.
Carmen is stunned when Prince Otto points toward her as the most talented individual there. A guest notes Carmen's popularity, while Eleanor remembers her status as the queen's personal attendant. The gray-haired woman expresses surprise that Eleanor wasn't chosen after obtaining a rare black rose. Eleanor smiles politely at Lady Boyas, claiming it is an honor to receive such praise.
Eleanor tells the others that Carmen frequently breaks rules by exploiting her status and great beauty. Carmen is depicted amidst flowers, with text acknowledging her as a talented and charming woman.
Chibi characters gossip about Carmen's many admirers and her future service to the royal family.
Eleanor expresses hope for the Countess's recovery while casting a suspicious sidelong glance at Carmen.
Carmen notices Eleanor's knowing expression and realizes the other woman has seen the broken cup.
Narration explains that the cup was pre-cracked, a tactic the original Carmen used for sabotage. Eleanor recalls blaming herself in the past because proving the cups were flawed was impossible.
Staring at the tiny version of her past self, Eleanor questions why these memories are resurfacing. Eleanor realizes the earthquake was a unique timeline event and wonders how Carmen will react now.
Carmen clutches her chest in worry, noticing the queen's persistent gloom following the dinner banquet.
A tall, dark-haired man in an elegant white shirt appears framed by large white lilies.
The dark-haired man smiles charmingly as he approaches and formally addresses Lady Carmen by name.
Tibi Dallas prefers his nickname while Carmen asks why he has visited her chamber.
Tan claims his visit is personal before being summoned by the king and departing for engagements.
Carmen fans herself as her heart races, reflecting on the handsome man kissing her hand.
Returning to the Queen's parlor, Carmen formally greets Her Majesty and the assembled noble ladies.
Charlotte asks if Carmen liked the cosmetics, and the red-haired lady confirms she received them.
Another lady seated nearby questions Charlotte about giving the luxurious cosmetics to Carmen.
Charlotte explains the gift was casual, while Carmen mentions her recent encounter with Tan Dallas.
The queen remarks that Tan finally appeared, noting he always acts according to his own whims.
The queen explains Tan often ignores summons, but the king respects the Sage Tower's total independence.
Narration explains Marquis Dallas manages the mages while they maintain an allegiance to the king. Calling him too free-spirited, the queen asks Carmen if she managed to speak with him. Carmen describes Tan as unique and excessively handsome, a sentiment the queen readily acknowledges as true. A maid enters the parlor to announce the arrival of Prince Richard and Lady Eleanor. Prince Richard and Eleanor enter the chamber to offer their greetings to the queen and guests. Richard explains Eleanor suggested the visit after he reflected on the deep bond between children and parents. The queen invites them for tea, deciding to use her special teacups for her visiting son. Carmen panics when asked for the cups, suspecting Eleanor knows they were already in poor condition. Narration details the successful milk repair of minor cracks, though one cup remained completely shattered. Despite her maid's lingering nerves, Carmen decides she must be completely honest with the queen.
Carmen plans to confess, hoping the queen will value her truthfulness regarding the broken palace treasure.
Tan Dallas startles Carmen by appearing suddenly, explaining she was too distracted to notice his presence. Carmen crossly asks how he would handle seeing her in a state she couldn't reveal to others. Tan teases Carmen about her vacant look, which immediately prompts an annoyed retort from the lady. After a playful compliment, Carmen asks Tan if magic can fix something by reversing its time. Tan explains time magic's complexity, warning that rewinding something broken won't hide the ultimate truth.
Tan asks what she wants fixed, and Carmen admits she broke a very important royal teacup.
Carmen asks for a heat-resistant bonding material, and Tan suggests several items are easy to handle. Gazing intently at her, Tan listens as Carmen expresses her willingness to try any repair method.
Tan mourns that visible cracks remain on repaired items and no one desires to use broken things.
Determined to solve the problem, Carmen resolves to take a risk and try something entirely unconventional. Under the night sky, Carmen kneels before the queen and requests forgiveness for an urgent confession. Carmen confesses to breaking the teacup, but the queen reveals she already noticed Carmen's distressed expression. After Carmen apologizes for the delay, the queen offers her sincere thanks for the lady's honesty. Carmen explains she attempted to repair herself as Melanie brings a container onto the palace balcony. Carmen presents the cup, noting she used a unique repair method from an advanced ceramic culture. Examining the shimmering repair, the queen asks if it's gold, and Carmen says it's something similar. The queen admires the beautiful result and waives any punishment, appreciating Carmen's honest and creative handling. Text indicates a transition to a tea party at the Geroy's residence held a few days later. Narration notes the calm atmosphere shifted abruptly when the Queen Mother and Duchess Hartreya arrived. The Queen Mother praises brilliant daughters and tells the guests to set examples for young Geroys.
After Eleanor and Carmen thank her, the Queen Mother remarks that becoming relatives makes things easier.
Prince Richard is visibly shocked and confused by his grandmother's sudden mention of them becoming relatives.
The Queen Mother speaks of lifelong couples while Carmen wonders why everyone is staring at her. The Queen Mother confidently tells her companion that the Marchioness will explain everything in more detail.
Pausing the conversation, the Queen Mother wonders aloud if she has failed to mention the news. Looking bewildered, Prince Richard asks his grandmother exactly what she is talking about during the party. The Queen Mother announces Richard's brother's engagement, leaving Carmen wondering if she is the intended bride. Back at her own home, Carmen enters a room and warmly greets her mother with a smile. Carmen's mother waits in a beautifully decorated room as her daughter returns from the royal palace. The mother welcomes Carla home and the two exchange compliments while discussing palace fashion and styles. Carmen's mother explains how the fashions favored within the palace differ significantly from outside styles. Carmen's mother believes lace ficus would appear tacky with the dress while privately plotting against Eleanor. Clutching her mother's hand, Carmen mentions her requirement to attend the royal banquet that evening.
Internally, Carmen expresses her reluctance to encounter the Queen Dowager despite it being a work necessity.
Carmen's mother reveals that her upcoming attendance is the exact reason she requested this meeting. The mother explains that the Queen Dowager suggested a formal engagement between Carmen and Prince Otto. Carmen's mother confirms she declined the royal proposal by claiming someone else was already being considered. Stunned by the news, Carmen receives a lecture about maintaining a lady's composure despite sudden surprises. Suspicious of the claim, Carmen asks her mother to identify the mysterious person being considered instead. Smiling broadly, the mother admits she lied because she only desires Prince Richard for her daughter.
The mother justifies her deception by noting the Queen Dowager would not accept a refusal without reason.
Reconsidering the political landscape, Carmen's mother notes Prince Otto remains a high-status marriage option for them.
Carmen firmly rejects the marriage, thinking she cannot decide while the original lady remains absent.
The mother notes Carmen's changing views on the princes, remarking on how much her daughter has changed. Pointing out Carmen's high reputation, the mother advises her to choose her partner without feeling rushed.
While wanting power for her daughter, the mother prioritizes Carmen's happiness with her true love.
The mother suspects Carmen's heart is taken, though Carmen denies any remaining interest in Prince Richard.
The mother reassures Carmen that the queen's favor should protect her from any lingering social worries.
Overwhelmed by the support, Carmen reflects on how much the original lady would have appreciated this.
Carmen impulsively hugs her mother tightly, a sudden display of affection that catches the older lady off guard.
The mother gently pats her daughter's head, amused by the sudden and intense display of emotion.
Embracing Carmen back, the mother notes the casual nature of the proposal and the queen's type. The mother laughs while explaining that the queen dowager typically prefers much more old-fashioned women.
Rumors of the rejection spread through town as Eleanor arrives at the Countess's lively tea party.
Eleanor brought hazelnut cookies, anticipating the Countess will soon request desserts containing that specific ingredient.
Expecting Harmon to use poison again, Eleanor remains confident while observing Lord Paul and the children.
An attendant requests the door be opened as a group of noble ladies gathers outside. A noble lady in a regal purple dress walks gracefully past a cluster of white flowers.
The young girl calls out to her mother as the Queen Dowager enters the room.
The Queen Dowager instructs the girl to greet her guests properly during this official tea party.
Eleanor watches the interactions with a satisfied smile, feeling that everything is proceeding exactly as expected.
Prince Otto approaches Eleanor and formally addresses her by name as he enters the grand hall.
Eleanor greets Prince Otto, stating it is an honor to be a guest at this party.
The young girl excitedly greets Prince Richard as her big brother, and he lifts her up.
Richard explains he couldn't miss the chance to taste the cookies the girl made herself.
The older woman scolds Richard for his overly familiar behavior in front of the watching guests. Prince Otto looks toward Richard with a slight smile while Eleanor experiences a strange, sudden relief.
Eleanor notes the differences in this timeline, specifically that Melanie was not sent for her usual poison.
The young girl resolves to keep her guard up even though she has removed her dangerous hairpins. Eleanor is shocked to see the Queen and Carmen's mother arriving at the tea party together. The older woman thinks about the noise while someone approaches her with an urgent, quiet message. The Queen and Carmen's mother share a private, knowing look during the ongoing social gathering. The two ladies stand together in their elegant dresses, surveying the room with a sense of authority. Looking toward the guests, the two noble women express a sudden and visible sense of surprise or curiosity.
Eleanor stares in stunned silence, her face reflecting a deep sense of shock at a new arrival.
Behind a decorative fan, a chibi version of Carmen giggles at the surprise her entrance has caused. Carmen reveals her new dress is modeled after the Empress's style, surprising the other party guests. A guest asks if the dress looks strange, while another lady expresses surprise at the bold style. A guest compliments the dress's beauty while noting that Carmen's overall aura feels significantly different today.
Carmen maintains a stern and focused expression, mentally warning herself to avoid causing any new trouble.
Carmen's mother compliments her daughter's posture, suggesting they should both adopt this new dress style.
Carmen's mother laughs while asking Prince Otto for his opinion on the lady's striking new dress.
Prince Otto smiles, noting that the dress style reminds him of his mother in her younger days. The royal family and noble guests gather around a grand, long banquet table for a formal meal.
Melanie, the pink-haired maid, looks up with a surprised and attentive expression when her name is called. An announcement heralds the arrival of the most distinguished nobles while a woman speaks of their importance.
The king enters the hall with a veiled blonde girl, Halsel, leaning gently on his arm. The queen mother questions Halsel's presence at the party given the late hour and her condition. The king addresses his mother while Carmen reflects on Halsel's painful and recurring allergy to the sun. Carmen watches the young teenager with pity, noting how much the girl blames herself for her play. The queen mother pressures Halsel to endure the pain and attend more social gatherings without her veil. Carmen whispers a secret instruction to Melanie, who eagerly agrees to fetch the item requested by her.
Melanie waves to get attention, announcing she has prepared a way for Halsel to drink tea comfortably.
Still veiled, Halsel stops and expresses surprise at the mention of a special preparation just for her.
Melanie presents a glass straw while Carmen considers new ways to protect herself from potential social rivals.
Halsel smiles beneath her veil and offers her sincere thanks for the helpful and thoughtful glass straw.
Carmen enjoys a piece of chocolate cake, noting that the flavor reminds her of Eleanor's hometown treats.
Carmen notices Eleanor's strange and focused gaze, asking the other lady if something is on her face.
Melanie remains mesmerized by her lady's beauty while Carmen checks if the cake suits everyone's personal taste. Carmen feeds a piece of cake to a young boy, deciding to let the social situation proceed. Carmen questions Eleanor's behavior while the queen mother decides she must investigate the suspicious lady further.
Eleanor holds a vial of medicine, insisting to those around her that its contents are not life-threatening.
A palace attendant whispers to the queen mother that the liquid in the bottle appears completely harmless.
Eleanor reflects on her fading status, lamenting the loss of respect she once held as a future wife.
Watching Carmen through bars, Eleanor realizes she was trapped again and senses that upcoming events will change. A dark circular thought bubble expresses a deep sense of terror regarding the current dangerous situation. Traveling by carriage at night, Carmen finally finds the time to read a mysterious and strange paper. Reading of a tragic incident involving flames, Carmen is left visibly shocked and confused by the news. Carmen is suddenly kidnapped in the dark, calling for help before a hand covers her mouth. Magical sparkles shimmer against a dark background, signifying a shift in the atmosphere or passage of time.
Carmen recounts being kidnapped by those jealous of her unique ability to predict upcoming social fashion trends.
Carmen points a finger in accusation, identifying Eleanor Van as the only suspect behind her abduction. Carmen explains how she successfully sent a message for help via a small boy to a workshop. Sitting in her dark cage, Carmen resolves to find a way to escape her captors very soon.
A door swings open as a captor enters, startling Carmen during her attempt to plan an escape.
The bearded captor mocks Carmen's nobility while demanding to know how she managed to send a message.
Realizing her situation is grave, Carmen stares back at her captor, who aggressively grabs her by the face.
Tandalis suddenly appears and pulls Carmen into a protective embrace, causing her heart to thump wildly.
Magical chains erupt to restrain the captors as Carmen reflects on her readiness to die in that place. Carmen looks up in bewilderment as she realizes the magician who came to her rescue is Tan.
Tandalis smiles reassuringly at the lady, telling her he has come specifically to pick her up.
Carmen narrates her detour to the Magic Tower where she met her talented advisor and magician, Elvil.
Elvil questions Carmen about her desire to capture the suspicious people after confirming the lady is still alive.
Elvil admits her water magic isn't for tracking and offers to introduce a specialist for a modest fee. Carmen is surprised when Elvil only requests help selling skincare products in exchange for her magical tracking.
Tandalis' arrival is emphasized once more, highlighting the moment he saved Carmen from her captors.
Standing amidst magical water, Elvil is introduced as the water mage Carmen met at the Magic Tower.
Carmen describes the security provided by the tall tower and her meeting with a tracking and disguise mage. Ascending the tower stairs, Carmen reflects on how this place is entirely separate from her royal identity.
Holding a lantern, Carmen explains that Tan is her personal connection and not part of her Carmen persona.
Carmen gasps in astonishment as she witnesses a stunning visual display in the night.
Mesmerized by the glowing insects, Carmen questions their presence while admiring their radiant, natural beauty.
Realizing the lack of water nearby, Carmen correctly deduces that the display is actually magic.
The sudden appearance of Tandalis catches Carmen off guard, causing her to jump in surprise.
Smiling softly, Carmen admits to Tandalis that her thoughts are keeping her from sleeping. Tandalis gazes at the lady, asking if her stay has been uncomfortable or distressing. Carmen expresses her comfort with the kind residents, prompting Tan to probe for her insomnia's cause.
Narrowing her focus, Carmen reveals that she has many heavy matters weighing on her mind.
Tandalis encourages her to share, while Carmen wonders why he reacts with such shock.
Staring intently, Tandalis reflects on the possibility of finally stopping his endless, solitary flight.
Carmen leans in to whisper a secret, piquing the curiosity of a slightly confused Tandalis.
Carmen asks if he has ever felt isolated by being different, which Tandalis confirms.
Carmen explains that being unique brings both burdens and dangers, including threats to her very life.
A heavy silence falls over Tandalis, leaving Carmen to wonder about his sudden lack of response.
Tandalis apologizes, explaining that her presence feels more like a beautiful illusion than reality.
Perplexed by his poetic words, Carmen asks for a clearer explanation of what he truly means.
Tan speaks vaguely about an illusion while Carmen offers to return to her room if needed. Reaching out to stop her, Tandalis confirms that the people who called him are gone.
As the night air grows cold, Carmen offers a grateful smile despite the chilly outdoor temperature.
Tandalis draws Carmen close, his intense gaze fixed on her as the atmosphere becomes intimate.
When Carmen thanks him for his kindness, Tandalis insists he is not a kind person.
Carmen playfully argues that Tandalis simply has not recognized the inherent kindness within his character.
Tandalis claims no one truly knows him, while Carmen finds his genuine smile quite fragile.
Carmen reflects on the young Marquise's difficulty connecting with others despite his odd but friendly nature. Noting their shared uniqueness, Carmen finds comfort in the common ground she has with the magician.
Tandalis sits on a bench, noting that their differences go beyond just their social status.
Tandalis claims to never feel exhaustion, though Carmen suggests he is merely unaware of it.
Seated together in the quiet garden, Carmen insists that everyone experiences weariness at some point.
A cosmic thought highlights the importance of stopping before one reaches a point of total breakdown. Staring at her hands, Carmen admits how deeply she needed to hear those reassuring, comforting words.
Resolving to fix her situation, Carmen stands up and prepares to return to her private quarters.
Preparing to depart, Carmen asks if she should return the warm coat he lent her earlier.
Tandalis insists she keep the coat for now, allowing Carmen to enjoy his quiet protection.
Carmen walks back to her room, reflecting on the peaceful conclusion of her late-night encounter.
The next morning, Amaro brings breakfast while Elvil encourages Carmen to begin her daily preparations. Carmen dotes on Amaro, ensuring he stays warm as she helps the young boy get ready.
Admiring her reflection, Carmen praises the expert makeup work Elvil performed on her this lively morning.
Elvil explains more about advanced magical studies while Carmen focuses on the information she has gathered.
Carmen reviews her knowledge about the mage's enemies, the Tower Masters, and Tan's specific investigation.
Elvil notes the Master's unusual attention toward Carmen, who admits she insisted on staying there.
An invitation to enter signals the arrival of another person to the lady's current meeting.
Watseeker introduces himself as an ordinary mage, seemingly impressed by Carmen's friendly and welcoming reputation.
Elvil identifies Watseeker as the Shadow Mage Master tasked with Carmen's request for tracking and disguise. Watseeker and Elvil bicker like siblings while Carmen observes the close bond between the two mages. Carmen attempts to ask Watseeker about his arrival and the status of the request she made. Elvil points out that Carmen is still holding onto the Master's robe from the previous night.
Blushing slightly, Carmen explains that she borrowed the robe and intends to return it very soon. Watseeker notes the changing seasons, warning Carmen that her thin robe won't protect her from illness.
The mages laugh as Carmen hides her face, warning her not to ruin her perfect makeup.
Watseeker confirms he has completed his investigation, leaving Carmen in a state of complete, stunned shock.
Watseeker notes that the investigation results arrived as soon as the inquiry concluded. Watseeker details his goals, vetting Carmen's close friends and finding proof to expose Eleanor.
Carmen resolves to go home after listening to the details within Watseeker's final report.
A bright and clear sky signifies a shift in the story's setting and atmosphere.
Seated at his desk, Tan Dallas asks his guests if everyone has finally gathered together.
A close-up shows a hand snapping its fingers to activate a magical spell or signal.
Standing with his back turned, Tan Dallas summons a large vortex of swirling magical energy.
The magical vortex resolves into an ornate mirror, revealing a vision of a lush landscape.
Tan Dallas smiles softly as he watches a vision of Carmen and the mages together.
Watching the mirror, Tan Dallas reflects on how Carmen's appearance feels strange and look different.
Tan Dallas recalls Carmen's first appearance at the estate as being vibrant and full of life.
Within the vision, Elville excitedly invites Carmen to eat from a nearby peach tree together.
Watseeker joins the group, teasing that some almonds can be poisonous during this harvest season.
Watching the mages follow her, Tan Dallas reflects on Carmen's rainbow-like, otherworldly presence.
Tan Dallas observes the group's close bond while Carmen thanks Amaro for his warmth and kindness.
A hand rests on a document, shifting the narrative toward the formal investigation results.
The report confirms the Lasita family's innocence, noting the parents and Ramona's desperate search for Carmen.
A goateed man is identified as a leather merchant who kidnapped Carmen for petty revenge.
Carmen's narration clarifies that the person who truly wanted her dead was not a merchant.
Watseeker confirms Eleanor used expensive teleportation magic and puppet-like manipulation to orchestrate the targeted kidnapping.
Alone in her room, Carmen exhales and resolves to maintain a neutral expression before telling her visitor to enter.
A close-up of Carmen's shoe emphasizes her poise as she prepares for the meeting. Carmen stands with a composed expression, waiting for her visitor to step into her room. Tan Dallas enters, prompting Carmen to admire how well he pulls off casual, normal clothing.
Carmen offers a polite smile and explains that she has come to return his cum.
Stepping inside the cool room, Carmen looks around and comments on the pleasant air temperature.
Tan Dallas smiles warmly, crediting the comfortable temperature of the study to his own magic.
Carmen praises the tower's comfort while Tan credits a student's ideas for useful everyday magic. Carmen suggests that selling everyday magic items would be a hit with everyone, including the queen.
Tan Dallas reaches out to accept the returned coat as Carmen concludes her visit.
Carmen thanks Tan, noting the warmth of the jacket and his helpful presence during her stay.
Tan Dallas asks if she is leaving, his hand reaching out as they stand together.
Carmen confirms her departure and expresses her sincere gratitude for all of Tan's significant help.
Tan Dallas gazes at the lady, noting that her face currently looks quite sad to him.
Carmen asks if he is serious, looking down and fidgeting with her hands as she speaks.
Carmen admits the thought of being busy at home already makes her head hurt with stress.
Tan Dallas looks at the lady somberly, stating that he can certainly imagine her situation.
Tan Dallas wonders if Carmen might eventually become like Eleanor as they stare at each other. Carmen closes her eyes, telling Tan to ask for anything so she can repay his kindness.
Carmen looks at Tan Dallas with a gentle smile, reaffirming her desire to return his help.
Tan Dallas smiles reassuringly, telling the lady that he only did what he could do.
The two share a warm and smiling gaze, surrounded by soft floral motifs and glowing light. Carmen plans to explain her absence by telling her parents she went into hiding after feeling threatened.
Tan Dallas sits back, noting that rumors of him kidnapping a woman would delight many.
Carmen laughs, imagining the person Tan refers to while he smiles back at her. Seated in the study, Carmen asks Tan what happened to the people he previously caught.
Tan explains the captors are under a nightmare curse, shocking Carmen with the tower's prison system.
Tan identifies the leader as a ruthless mercenary who used illegal magic, explaining how Tan found him.
Carmen blushes while thinking about being alive thanks to Tan and feels a deep sense of gratitude.
Staring off in thought, Tan Dallas considers how the captured man might eventually be useful. Carmen turns around slowly, her gaze lingering on Tan Dallas as they prepare to discuss the prisoner.
Looking determined, Carmen asks if she can borrow the captured man for a short while. Tan explains his reason for keeping the man, while Carmen considers his potential usefulness for her plans.
Tan Dallas asks if there is a specific task she would like to entrust to the prisoner.
Carmen wants him to testify at trial. Tan Dallas explains nightmare curses before agreeing to spare the man's life. Tan signals for Carmen to observe as he prepares to reveal a special magical item. A small, ornate chest appears magically before Carmen, who looks on with wide-eyed curiosity. Carmen opens the mysterious chest and asks what is contained within the small, decorative container.
A brilliant, sparkling light radiates from the open chest, illuminating the room with a magical glow.
Tan sits comfortably, explaining that the chest holds a will-o'-the-wisp light spirit used to illuminate the tower.
Beaming with delight, Carmen thanks Tan and promises to cherish this beautiful and lovely memory.
Mesmerized by the magical spirit, Carmen comments on its immense beauty while expressing her sincere gratitude.
Reflecting on Tan's attempt to comfort her, Carmen asks if sharing secrets truly makes them closer.
A close-up focuses on Carmen's eye, capturing a moment of intense emotional clarity and introspection.
Tan Dallas listens intently as Carmen asks if they had become closer now that he knows her secret. Smiling gently, Tan Dallas agrees with her sentiment, his voice carrying the weight of a new realization.
Days later, Carmen arrives at the Queen's party, stepping out of her carriage to the surprise of everyone.
Narration reveals the true culprit was a rival noblewoman, prompting Carmen to send Tan an apology letter. The instigator is exiled while the kidnappers are executed. The Marquis gives jewels to Tan in gratitude. A cosmic view accompanies a thought about the possibility of having many more enemies than originally suspected.
At court, Carmen notes the lack of marriage proposals despite the room being full of charming people.
Dialogue mentions Princess Jaden's past proposal and the king's remarriage following the passing of Queen Epinelia. Turning her head with curiosity, Carmen asks about the current status or situation regarding Prince Otto. Narrative text explains that Prince Otto's previous link to Lady Alocasia of Fontesa eventually fell through. Observing two noblewomen, the narration notes that Carmen is asking questions that seem out of character for her. Carmen greets Eleanor politely while a nearby noblewoman watches with a suspicious and calculating expression. Smiling brightly, Carmen asks the other lady if there is something unusual or noticeable on her face. Madame Hines offers a compliment, leading to Carmen meeting Leo Winshead and reflecting on her own thoughts. Carmen considers the social navigation of the Baroness, deciding there is no need to feud with Devereaux Trading. The group discusses Leo Winshed's unexpected presence at the party despite her absence from the guest list. Madame Hines looks shocked and agitated, questioning how Leo Winshed managed to attend the Queen's exclusive party. Carmen attempts to calm Madame Hines, suggesting that the other woman is currently overreacting to the situation. A man arrives carrying a piece of red fabric that reportedly came from a dress gifted by the Queen. Carmen analyzes the woman's experience, wondering if she is seeking lease investments or perhaps bribing royalty. Madame Hines calls the woman shrewd, while Carmen wonders if she is simply passionate about her work. Madame Hines looks tearful and distressed while Carmen offers a lighthearted laugh during their conversation. Winking playfully, Carmen reassures the lady that she would never place an order without consulting her first. Carmen explains she handled things herself while busy, calling her meeting with Madame Mark a happy accident. The ladies discuss the exquisite design of lace-up sandals and the advantages of having a female designer. Seated gracefully among flowers, Carmen presents an image of elegance and quiet, thoughtful composure. Carmen ponders Lady Winchhead's true target if she is indeed at the party searching for potential business investors. Narration details falling profits at Devereaux Trading and compares Eleanor's wealth to a potential secret sponsor. Carmen warns Madame Hines against speaking ill of Eleanor, describing her as a very refined woman. Madame Hines expresses excitement upon seeing the specific red fabric she had been searching for. Madame Hines stares intensely, wondering if Carmen views her as a naive and inexperienced child. Carmen asks Madame Hines to investigate Devereaux Trading's purchases, hoping for her assistance once again. A close-up shows hands carefully working with the vibrant red velvet fabric around a garment's waist. Madame Hines and a man admire the work, discussing the high costs and restrictions of royal colors. Narration explains that reusing royal fabrics allows one to bypass rules and avoid extra production costs.
Carmen offers a warm and satisfied smile, framed by delicate flowers and a soft, glowing atmosphere.
Carmen explains that white silk is vital for her lace business, but only the temple currently produces it. Carmen celebrates a hard-earned day off with a high-spirited stretch while her companions watch her with amusement.
While window shopping, Carmen and Melanie notice the rising popularity of lace-up sandals and empire-style dresses.
Accompanied by knights, Carmen and Melanie are startled by a sudden commotion and rush toward the shouting. Carmen and Melanie recognize the voice of Madame Mark and wonder what has caused such a disturbance. They hurry toward the source of the noise, where Carmen demands an explanation for the unfolding chaos.
A man greets Carmen and apologizes for the unpleasant scene involving competing workshops and stolen materials.
Narration explains the intense rivalry and theft between workshops as Madame Mark's business faces a significant setback.
Carmen reflects on the problem, resolving to find a solution to the supply and production issues.
Melanie asks if something is wrong, prompting Carmen to emphasize the urgent need for systemic protection.
A close-up captures Carmen's determined expression as she vows to protect the people she cares about.
Carmen spots a man she identifies as a previous complainer walking away in the distance. In a chibi-style panel, Melanie restrains an angry Carmen, urging her to ignore the man and move on. A hooded figure in a dark cloak stands alone in a quiet, dimly lit urban alleyway.
Carmen reacts with surprise upon seeing the hooded figure, who looks back with a knowing gaze. A gloved hand knocks on a door as a voice warns that this is no place for a lady. Startled by the sudden sound in the warning, Carmen looks back with wide-eyed shock.
Tan Dallas appears behind her with a playful smile, accompanied by a polite and bowing Emerald.
Carmen scolds Tan Dallas for surprising her, reminding him that she previously asked him not to do so.
The two bicker humorously about whether a knock counts if someone is talking at the same time. Carmen sighs, noting to herself that the man certainly has a peculiar way with words.
Tan Dallas turns serious, suggesting that Carmen avoid going down the dangerous street she was considering.
He explains the dangers of the back alleys, warning that bosses are informed the moment she enters. A dramatic close-up emphasizes the intensity between the two as they discuss the hidden city dangers.
Tan Dallas jokes about his own kindness, while Carmen looks on with a skeptical, deadpan expression.
Carmen exhales a long, tired breath, clearly feeling the weight of the day's various stresses. Regaining her composure, Carmen greets Amaro warmly and asks how he has been doing lately.
Amaro bows respectfully to Carmen and Melanie as the group gathers to discuss their business.
Carmen asks Amaro what brings him to such a location, curious about his presence in the alley. Pointing toward the alley, Amaro explains that he has some business at the pharmacy down that way.
Carmen watches him leave, feeling worried but acknowledging that it isn't her place to intervene. Standing before a giant magical clock, Carmen resolves to investigate the situation involving Eleanor Van.
Tan Dallas waves goodbye, signaling their departure as he and Amaro head off on their task.
A close-up of Amaro shows him noticing that Tan Dallas is acting differently than usual.
Tan Dallas looks back at a carriage, commenting on the interesting nature of the current situation.
Imaro agrees while Tan Dallas notes their luck in observing Lady Van lurking in the back alleys. Eleanor Van stands at the center of a magical aura, identified as the person currently holding it.
A detailed close-up shows the intricate, glowing patterns of a magical circle or seal.
Noble women discuss canceling Sir Kyan's seat and wanting to sit near handsome men at the party. In a small panel, a frustrated Harcel refuses to sit near her mother while they discuss Aspen. Clapping her hands, the queen announces that it is time to begin the formal tea time.
Carmen asks Lamona about the slums, mentioning she saw someone resembling Eleanor Van there recently.
The Queen's party continues as ladies discuss the upcoming Harvest Festival and the choice of white dresses. A noblewoman notes that fashion trends are unavoidable while the Queen listens thoughtfully to the group.
Surrounded by yellow flowers, Carmen explains her new look was repurposed from items she already owned.
The Queen winks, finding Carmen's take interesting and feeling well prepared for the upcoming social events.
Seated together, the nobles conclude that the location seen was likely the real Guild Street.
Alon and Lamona express concern over the location, prompting Carmen to request a deeper investigation.
Elon notes that Carmen's reputation is at risk, wondering if another plot is being orchestrated.
Carmen remains undeterred by potential costs, asking Elon if he is prepared to handle multiple requests. Tan Dallas smiles warmly, promising that he remains completely devoted to her every need. Pushing the doors open, Carmen demands to know who is present in the room.
She reacts with visible shock upon discovering that Priest Chevra is the one admitting.
The priest offers a formal apology while insisting that she must accompany him immediately.
A heavy, expectant silence follows the priest's sudden and serious demand for her presence. An official investigator asks Carmen if she has recently commissioned any new clothing items. Carmen admits to the commission but grows suspicious when he mentions the specific crimson color. The investigator questions her use of white silk, which she confirms was for the dress. He reminds her that crimson is a royal color, but she defends her fashion choices. Carmen stares intensely, finding it difficult to understand why she is being questioned so thoroughly.
He reveals that temple silk was stolen and that she has become a primary suspect.
Carmen scoffs behind her fan, questioning why she would ever need to steal from others.
The official explains the severity of temple theft and requests her cooperation in the investigation.
Smiling confidently, Carmen claims that the fabric in question was purchased quite a long time ago.
She identifies Lorca Trading and Madame Hines as the verified sources of her materials.
Carmen recounts taking charge of various workshops to protect her allies and secure purchase records.
She reveals that her maid has all the records from her extensive market research process.
Carmen questions what the witness truly saw, noting she has not visited the temple recently.
The investigator reports that a pharmacist saw someone resembling her with a specific fabric merchant.
Eleanor Van reflects on the success of her investments and her rewoven temple silk materials.
She calculates her current profits, believing they should be 20 times higher than they are.
Eleanor wonders if Carmen is cunning enough to escape the trap she has carefully set.
A voice grants permission for a visitor to enter the office as the door opens.
Eleanor recognizes the hooded visitor immediately, acknowledging that they have finally met once again.
The hooded man demands payment for something she allegedly stole from him earlier.
Eleanor smiles broadly, insisting she has never taken anything belonging to someone else. Growing impatient, she demands he leave the office if his visit is not strictly business.
The hooded man suddenly casts detection magic, prompting a startled reaction from Lady Van. He searches the room magically while she demands he answer her own questions first. Tan Dallas reveals his face as Eleanor notes his reputation for being a bold eccentric.
He laughs and departs, warning Eleanor not to become too arrogant with her clever schemes.
Carriages arrive at the royal palace as the evening's grand social event officially begins.
Inside her carriage, Eleanor feels a sense of unease but resolves to keep moving forward.
She believes Carmen is too busy clearing her name to interfere with the lace cams.
Despite her confidence, Eleanor cannot shake the feeling that something is fundamentally going wrong.
Smiling, Eleanor greets her aunt and agrees it is time to enter the party together.
The palace ballroom stands ready, bathed in golden light and filled with arriving noble guests.
The herald announces the official arrival of Countess Nozak and Lady Eleanor Van to the party.
Nearby guests whisper about Eleanor's changed aura, questioning if she is the same country girl.
Guests admire Eleanor's shawl, wondering if the exquisite lace came from the DeValet Trading Company.
Eleanor revels in the attention, knowing she has achieved the exact reaction she was seeking. The social circle begins to relax as Eleanor prepares to enjoy her perceived victory.
The herald shocks the room by announcing the sudden arrival of Lady Carmen Lucida.
Eleanor whips her head around in disbelief as her main rival enters the ballroom.
A close-up of Carmen's focused eyes shows her determination to dominate the social scene.
Eleanor is struck by sudden fear, desperately wondering how Carmen managed to appear so soon. Carmen stands in her full glory, radiating a powerful and elegant presence before the crowd.
Carmen explains to the group that she receives commissions for introducing customers to these cloaks.
Carmen observes Eleanor and Countess Reinhard, noting their unusual excitement despite the seasonal fashion.
Carmen reflects on the fact that she could not find any white fabric matching Eleanor's dress.
Carmen credits the ledger records for successfully establishing her business system and avoiding any potential approval delays.
She assumes responsibility for raw materials and workshop commissions while the herald announces the royal family's grand arrival. The queen presides over the gathering, notably wearing the highlight piece from the Delia Haute Couture winter collection. A man and a silver-haired woman greet Lady Carmen with warm smiles as she moves through the ballroom.
In a chibi-style panel, the silver-haired Lady Lamona explains she will only dance to a faster tempo song.
A polite, blonde nobleman approaches the red-haired woman and requests the honor of sharing a dance with her.
While dancing, she reflects on Nocturne's alliance with Eleanor and wonders what price was paid for his support. The grand and ornate palace ceiling looms overhead, symbolizing the high stakes and luxury of the social event.
Feeling the weight of the social pressure, the woman decides it is a good time to take a break.
Tan Dallas watches the scene intently from the shadows, his expression remaining cold and focused on the dance floor.
Noticing his gaze, the woman wonders why he is looking at her with such an unreadable expression.
Tan Dallas considers Eleanor the heroine who deserves a happy ending, while viewing himself as merely a side character. In a chibi panel, Carmen drinks heavily to drown her sorrows, declaring she has no desire to dance anymore.
A voice stops her from leaving, noting her rare scent of herbs and autumn flowers amidst the high society.
Surprised by the familiar voice and the sudden appearance behind her, Carmen turns to face Tan Dallas. Tan Dallas offers a gentle smile and asks if she would care to dance if she is not hurried. Chibi Carmen finds his way of asking quite strange, but Tan simply maintains that it is his personal style.
Their hands meet in a close-up as they formally agree to join each other on the dance floor. The couple begins to dance, with Carmen reflecting that her choice was unavoidable despite the attention they are drawing.
Tan explains his lateness as business-related, while Carmen mentions she noticed his presence much earlier in the evening. Tan Dallas smiles while a thought bubble suggests he believes he belongs to someone else in this story. While Carmen decides she must change the subject, Tan reflects that he does not belong in this world.
Carmen proposes a business partnership, suggesting they sell the unique glue and scents Tan has previously created.
In a chibi panel, they humorously discuss her crazy ideas and the undeniable fact that money is always useful.
Tan Dallas agrees to help her earn money, noting that even sages have financial needs to attend to.
Tan turns the conversation back to the palace, expressing his desire to ask Carmen about the current rumors.
Carmen wonders if recording magic exists so she can gather evidence and finally prove her innocence to the court.
Tan informs her that such magic is non-existent, but confirms he has already heard about the accusations against her.
Thinking to herself, Carmen wonders if his interest stems from a genuine curiosity about her as an individual. A sudden, painful kick breaks the mood, prompting an exclamation of pain in a small chibi-style panel. Carmen justifies the kick by noting he knows much about her while she remains completely ignorant about him.
To settle the score, Tan Dallas agrees to reveal one of his secrets to her as they continue dancing. He leans in close, whispering that he is currently searching for something very important, big, and complicated.
Carmen's imagination runs wild with images of fire, wondering if he seeks a weapon to resurrect the Demon King. Tan Dallas laughs at her dramatic theory, finding the idea of him seeking such a weapon to be amusing. Guests whisper nearby, noting that Tan's beauty is so overwhelming that it is impossible for anyone to look away.
Carmen reflects that from a mage's perspective, a complicated search often involves something that determines the fate of the world.
Tan finds her interesting and asks if her question about his search was truly all she wanted to know. Choosing to save her other questions, Carmen notes that Tan likely wouldn't understand the complex concept of reincarnation. As the song concludes, Carmen feels a sense of suffocation while wondering if Tan is also kind to Eleanor. Tan Dallas announces he is leaving to find his friend, leaving Carmen standing alone on the dance floor. Carmen arrives at the dining hall, feeling relieved that she was not too late to join her friends.
Her companion expresses great relief that Carmen was finally able to successfully prove her innocence tonight.
A palace attendant approaches the table, informing Lady Carmen that Her Majesty the Queen is requesting her presence. Carmen approaches the royal table and asks the Queen what she requires of her.
Leaning in closely, the Queen whispers a question about the identity of the handsome man Carmen danced with earlier.
Flustered, Carmen identifies him as Marquis Dallas while admitting she never expected to actually dance with him.
In a chibi panel, the Queen accepts her answer with a simple acknowledgement and a calm expression.
The Dowager Queen mentions her grandson's engagement, pointedly referencing Carmen's previous rejection of an engagement with Otto. Carmen looks back thoughtfully, reflecting on the Dowager Queen's barbed comments as the party continues.
Carmen observes Otto's persistence regarding Eleanor, noting his refusal to give up on her. The palace banquet hall is filled with noble guests enjoying a lavish multi-course meal.
Eleanor Van and her aunt share a quiet, observant moment amidst the busy social gathering.
Eleanor reflects on her aunt's regal nature while discreetly observing Richard from across the room. A brown-haired lady expresses her deep honor at being invited to such a prestigious gathering.
Eleanor questions the woman about the existence of social equals within her specific regional domain.
A mother figure reprimands Lou for her behavior while offering an apology to Lady Van.
Feeling drained by the constant social maneuvering, Eleanor takes a quiet moment to catch her breath.
Eleanor evaluates the palace's interior and food, seeking to learn from its perfect arrangements.
A dark shadow falls over Eleanor's face as her internal resolve takes a sharper turn. An extreme close-up of Eleanor's focused eye reveals her intense concentration and calculating thoughts.
Carmen experiences a wave of pure disgust while observing Eleanor interacting with the other guests.
Eleanor discreetly listens to nearby conversations regarding the financial status and profits of the company.
Eleanor instructs her maid to relay an urgent message to Lord de Valet regarding the situation.
The Queen and Carmen discuss the success of the ball within a secluded private room. The Queen remarks on the necessity of participating in social events once a lady debuts.
Two women discuss their shared understanding of palace life despite their different upbringing backgrounds.
Carmen reflects on how everyone in this circle is rigorously trained in etiquette since childhood.
Carmen admits to herself that she has no memory of her own debutante ball experience. Carmen explains that it is natural to be observant of childhood surroundings during a conversation.
A servant approaches with a tray of exquisite wine glasses specifically requested for the occasion.
Carmen thanks the attendant as she prepares to serve the wine to the royal guests. The elegant glasses are presented as a perfect match for the Queen's unique and majestic style. The Queen laughs at Carmen's wit, admitting she was testing her worthiness as an attendant. Smiling warmly, the Queen declares that she and Carmen have now become genuine friends.
Noble women whisper behind their fans, their intense gazes creating a high-pressure environment for Lady Carmen.
The Queen mentions her thoughts regarding Countess Cornell's temporary absence from the royal palace. A blonde noblewoman expresses her confidence in the cultured ladies of the court during the absence. Carmen identifies the woman's behavior as jealousy, sensing she is waiting for her to fail.
While smiling politely, Carmen silently criticizes the woman for being bossy in the Queen's presence.
The Queen suggests that the woman should be genuinely concerned about Countess Cornell's imminent return.
A carriage travels through the night, carrying news that the Countess's health has finally improved.
The Queen praises Carmen as a blossoming flower, acknowledging she cannot remain an attendant forever.
Carmen reflects on her time with the Queen, honestly expressing how much she enjoyed the experience.
Carmen looks over a collection of expensive jewelry, noting how her feelings have gradually changed.
Carmen happily anticipates taking a well-deserved break now that her official work is completed.
The blonde lady looks visibly frustrated while the Queen remains calm and focused on her tea. In a chibi panel, Carmen reflects on the childish behavior that occurred during the earlier confrontation.
The Queen leans in toward Carmen, sharing a quiet and personal confidence between the two friends. Carmen reacts with surprise as the arrival of Countess Cornell is officially announced to the room. Anticipating a joyful reunion, a woman walks toward the entrance to greet the arriving Countess. Guests whisper about the Countess's restricted access and the quiet warnings shared by the palace staff. The narrative confirms that there is no intention of stopping the Countess from returning to court. A woman with a large ribbon in her hair stands poised as she prepares for the meeting.
Countess Cornell finally enters the room and offers a respectful greeting to Her Majesty.
The Queen welcomes the Countess back, acknowledging the fatigue from her long and difficult journey.
The Countess turns her attention toward Carmen, recognizing her presence in the room immediately. Taking Carmen's hands, the Countess expresses her deep impression of how she cared for the Queens.
Carmen remains humble about her success as the Countess wishes her continued prosperity in the future.
The Countess reveals that her early return was prompted by a specific request from her benefactor. A brown-haired lady presents a white gown, calling it a masterpiece of artistic design.
Using her experience as a chief attendant, she manages to procure high-quality white silk. A formal envelope featuring an intricate pattern is secured with a royal red wax seal.
Carmen reflects on the high price of quality items and her need to lead fashion trends.
Carmen shakes hands with the brown-haired woman, asking how she can ever repay such a favor.
The woman winks, noting that talent is essential for someone hoping to stand out at court. Mario arrives with the first settlement statement from the workshop they established together. Carmen sits at a cluttered desk, asking Mario to verify the amounts in the reports.
Mario appears visibly nervous and uneasy as he prepares to deliver some potentially upsetting news.
Surrounded by piles of documents, Carmen asks Mario what has happened to cause his distress.
A brown-haired lady enters the room carrying a tray of sweets to provide a brief distraction.
Mario reports that the boy's family has suddenly and unexpectedly fallen into a significant amount of debt.
Drinking tea, Carmen finds the news unusual given the family's reputation for great wealth.
As tea is poured, Mario mentions that Paul the gardener has requested an urgent personal meeting.
In a chibi panel, Carmen recalls the rose incident and agrees to see him.
Paul the gardener prostrates himself, apologizing for accidentally revealing the secret of the rainbow-colored roses.
Carmen asks for details, noting that her former role as maid makes it irrelevant now.
Paul explains he let the secret slip while drinking with gardeners from their former family household.
Carmen decides to let it slide since he reported it while considering the gardener's new workplaces.
Eleanor stands with her maid, appearing startled as she repeats the name Leonard aloud.
Papers fly through the air in a grand, darkened hall, signaling a moment of chaotic transition.
Eleanor warns that Tandalis is not their ally and they must remain cautious.
She reassures her companion that all confidential documents remain safe despite the recent suspicious palace activities.
Eleanor instructs Anne to inform Lord Deverard, planning to turn his rivalry into a strategic advantage.
Sunlight streams into a beautiful, lush greenhouse filled with various vibrant plants and tall glass windows.
Carmen walks through the garden accompanied by a silver-haired noblewoman and another lady.
Sitting together, the silver-haired lady asks if Carmen has time for a personal conversation. Carmen claims she isn't busy, while the silver-haired lady mentions the rising popularity of Lasita trading. Carmen expresses humility at being acknowledged by such a refined and prestigious noblewoman.
The silver-haired lady insists her praise is genuine as Carmen observes her with a sharp, calculating gaze.
A white vase containing a bouquet of rare blue roses sits as a centerpiece in the garden. The silver-haired lady claims the beautiful blue roses are a masterpiece created by her personal gardener. Carmen mentioned she previously asked about the variety but received no helpful information or hints. Carmen suspects the lady is displeased that a former maid would use the noble flower of roses. A blonde woman notes that Madame Leonard's roses are perfect, much to the annoyance of her companion. Carmen playfully asks her mother if the roses are amazing, causing the other woman to look frustrated. A patch of vibrant red roses grows in the greenhouse, highlighted by an elegant decorative border.
The silver-haired lady appears increasingly tense and nervous as the conversation regarding the flowers continues.
Carmen brightly announces that she would love the opportunity to see those roses in person.
The silver-haired lady apologizes, claiming the roses are currently out of season and cannot be viewed.
Carmen expresses disappointment while privately noting that the lady clearly has no intention of showing them.
Both women exchange a thumbs up, though their expressions suggest a layer of insincere social pleasantry.
Noble guests gather in a lounge, discussing the delightful dinner and praising the Countess's impeccable hosting.
A mustachioed man remarks that no tableware can compare to the elegance of the Countess's lace.
A lady spins joyfully, predicting that the silver thread lace will become a trend once the dowager wears it.
A man smiles while the silver-haired lady reacts with a cold, nervous expression to his comment.
In a chibi panel, 3 ladies agree that the queen is likely saving the lace for a banquet. A lady reassures the silver-haired countess that her majesty would never intentionally disregard her personal feelings.
The countess snaps her fan shut, declaring that dignity is a noblewoman's greatest asset over business.
Sitting on a sofa, the countess argues that money exists to maintain one's dignity and social standing. A man praises Countess Leonarda's hosting skills, while Carmen reflects on her rival's unique rose preparations.
Lady Lamona claims etiquette is nobility's foundation while privately reacting with shock to a gentle warning.
Thinking others remain quiet for now, Carmen laughs while noting doubts about her hosting traditional banquets.
In a quiet moment, Carmen reads the daily news while Lady Lamona enjoys a cup of tea.
Carmen reacts with surprise to a headline announcing Countess Leonarda's grand banquet for high society figures.
Pointing at the newspaper, Carmen asks Lady Lamona about the banquet scheduled to occur in 3 weeks.
Visibly startled, Lady Lamona asks Carmen if she truly was unaware of the upcoming grand social event.
Thinking about whispers of the Queen Dowager's attendance, Carmen notes she hasn't received a formal invitation. Lady Lamona exclaims that a party without Carmen is absolutely dreadful and unthinkable to even consider.
Identifying Eleanor's name on the guest list, Carmen realizes this is a deliberate act of petty retaliation.
Surrounded by flowers, Carmen asks Lady Lamona if she will be available to attend in 3 weeks. Thinking she will make time no matter what, Lady Lamona enthusiastically agrees to join Carmen's event. Carmen thanks her friend, deciding that petty provocations are best ignored with a calm and composed attitude. A newspaper article highlights the rivalry, questioning which grand banquet will ultimately steal the social spotlight.
Elegant, noble guests arrive at the grand entrance, starting the social event of the season.
An older man remarks on the long absence of banquets since before the time of Carmen's birth.
Criticizing poorly written news, 2 ladies gossip behind fans about their lack of participation in other parties. Recalling a formal invitation arrived just in time, a lady notes no one knows the future's outcome. Thinking the queen's attendance won't change its status, a lady suggests entering the banquet for new aristocrats.
Intricately patterned shoes step onto the polished floor as a lady makes her grand entrance. Vibrant red roses bloom along the garden pathway, enhancing the romantic atmosphere of the banquet. Descending the grand staircase, Carmen smiles warmly as she is officially welcomed as the evening's hostess. A lady in a red wrap stands with a blonde companion who is wearing a delicate veil. Greeting the group with surprise, Carmen acknowledges the presence of the Countess at her formal banquet event.
Amidst a backdrop of yellow flowers, Carmen thanks everyone for coming and welcomes them to the celebration.
A noblewoman explains that she couldn't help but participate since the banquet is hosted by Lady Carmen.
A stunning bouquet of fresh white and pink roses serves as an elegant table centerpiece.
Carmen admits her worry about inviting older women, but finds the queen's gift of flowers highly encouraging.
Sunlight fills a luxurious, empty lounge, highlighting the plush furniture and quiet, refined atmosphere.
A maid carefully prepares the tea service, pouring from a patterned pot into a delicate porcelain cup.
Inhaling the refreshing scent, a lady asks if the tea contains the herbs she previously provided Carmen.
Explaining it as flower tea, Carmen notes it is part of a plan to popularize a fragrance.
Sipping her drink, the noblewoman asks if this unique tea blend will be sold as a product.
Offering the tea as a special treat, Carmen playfully encourages her guests to enjoy themselves and relax.
The group sits together in the parlor, enjoying tea and light conversation during the festivities.
Carmen reflects on receiving special treatment when a man personally delivered a gift to her in a gazebo.
A lady enjoys a quiet moment, sipping her tea while observing the other banquet guests.
Suggesting they add sugar, a lady asks her companion to tell Ariel the tea is absolutely delicious.
The noblewoman mentions hearing that the queen surprisingly attended Countess Leonarde's rival banquet earlier that day.
Shocked by the news, Carmen finds it surprising while her guest notes it was to be expected.
Laughing to herself, Chibi Carmen notes that despite the news, almost all high-ranking nobles came here.
On the following day, maids urge a tired Carmen to rest, but she insists on writing thank you cards.
An attendant presents a business card, informing Carmen that a reporter from Delia News is waiting outside.
Thinking about rumors, Carmen decides to meet the reporter to see what information they are trying to procure.
Carmen stands poised in her personal study, prepared to receive the reporter for their interview.
Entering the room, the reporter apologizes for the early morning visit and for disturbing Carmen's busy schedule. Waving her hand, Carmen asks the man if conducting interviews in the early morning is his usual practice.
Sitting on the sofa, the reporter explains he conducts interviews regardless of time if news is breaking.
Carmen admits her indifference to his name while questioning the specific nature of the article he is writing.
Smiling, the reporter asks for understanding as he struggles to keep up with Carmen's refined noble speech.
Red-haired Carmen smilingly agrees to the reporter's request while gracefully holding her golden fan.
Placing his hand on a document, the reporter expresses interest in writing about yesterday's banquet. Carmen notes commoners rarely interview royalty, questioning the man for seeking the queen's permission beforehand.
Snapping her fan shot, Carmen playfully challenges him, privately noting the reporter's unexpected boldness.
The reporter argues that interviewing her is equivalent to seeking the royal family's own opinion.
Reclining on the sofa, Carmen suggests her butler handle simple questions while interpreting his hidden motives.
Leaning forward, the reporter reveals he has already drafted an article titled Banquet of Elegance. Visibly startled, Carmen reacts with genuine shock to the news that the article is already written. The reporter presents his manuscript, offering to make any corrections Carmen deems necessary upon her review.
Understanding his early arrival, Carmen offers sweets while resolving to exceed the high expectations set for her.
A newspaper highlights various social events, including praise for Carmen's choice of fragrances and the queen's attendance.
Black-haired Eleanor closes the newspaper with a look of intense frustration after reading the latest social news.
Madame Leonarde yells about slanderous news as Eleanor asks if she invested in the offending publication. Madame Leonarde admits her friend invested while Eleanor reflects on her own past experience with social speech.
Eleanor reflects on the queen's faction's influence over the media and why they would praise the rival banquet.
Madame Leonarde urges a mass unsubscription while Eleanor decides to let the Countess handle the petty retaliation.
Eleanor takes a calm sip of her tea, seemingly unbothered by the unfolding social drama.
Madame Leonarde turns sharply, questioning Eleanor's indifference toward the missed opportunity to sell their products.
A silhouette of the Countess Leonarde reveals that her recent party was a total social disaster.
Madame Leonarde throws a tantrum, vowing never to forgive those she believes are mocking her standing.
A dramatic, distorted reflection shows Eleanor's solemn expression as she contemplates the brewing social conflict.
A hand places a teacup onto its saucer with a deliberate and sharp movement.
Eleanor smiles coldly, noting that the backlash stems from a direct rebellion against the Leonarde family.
Against a backdrop of dark roses, a declaration is made to no longer tolerate the ongoing situation.
A vast, snowy mountain range stands tall, shifting the scene to a harsh and frozen landscape.
Eleanor stands in the bitter cold, her breath visible as she gazes out at the snowy vista.
Dressed in a heavy cloak, Eleanor stands alone in the snow, questioning if someone truly committed theft.
Back in the study, Carmen offers her support, inviting her guests to return whenever they need discussion.
A workshop scene depicts how the Tailor Guild halted fabric supplies following an unreasonable and sudden complaint.
Narration explains that Madame Hines' assistant accepted bribes to smuggle prohibited goods against strict guild regulations.
Deciding to investigate the sabotage, Carmen learns the treacherous assistant moved to work for another noble. Walking through the streets, Carmen realizes that other shops will attempt to dominate trends during the shutdown. Carmen focuses her gaze, wondering if the rival Develop company is the true source of her troubles.
Carmen reacts with surprise at the arrival of Amaro, recalling their previous dealings regarding fragrances.
The green-haired boy, Amaro, stands in the town square waiting to speak with the noblewoman. Carmen asks how he found her, to which Amaro replies that the Marquis staff gave him directions.
Gesturing toward her transport, Carmen invites the boy inside the carriage so they can speak privately.
The scene brightens as Carmen and Amaro enter the luxurious white carriage parked in the street.
Amaro settles into the plush seat of the carriage, appearing slightly nervous about the formal setting. Carmen drapes a cloak over the boy, insisting he must be cold in his light clothing.
Stylized figures show Amaro worrying about the cold while suggesting Carmen should use the cloak for herself.
Smiling warmly, Carmen reassures the boy that he needs the warmth more than she does right now.
Amaro delivers a grim warning from his master about someone sabotaging raw material supplies for her business.
Mentioning the Tower of Sages, Carmen vows not to remain silent if she is being personally targeted. Carmen learns the glass workshop suspension will continue, noting the suspicious frequency of incidents targeting her trade. Carmen pauses, contemplating whether a single enemy is responsible for all the recent setbacks she has faced. A pink-haired man confirms the involvement of the Leonarde and Devalet families, fueling Carmen's intense rage. The staff members look on with concern as they witness their mistress's growing anger and frustration. Clenching her hair in frustration, Carmen plans to write Lord Elon and visit the Gigant household. A maid suggests that today might be an ideal time for Carmen to conduct her planned hisn. Carmen clutches a purple ledger, declaring her intention to visit the royal palace immediately. The maid asks if she is meeting the king, but Carmen clarifies her visit concerns different business. A flustered chibi maid reacts with surprise to Carmen's unexpected and sudden palace visit plans. Carmen observes that any disruption in straw production will inevitably cause significant trouble for certain individuals. Darkness settles over the luxurious parlor, creating a quiet and contemplative atmosphere for the coming evening. Carmen performs a graceful curtsy while greeting Princess Harcel with a polite and formal morning address. Princess Harcel warmly welcomes Lady Carmen, expressing how much she has missed their infrequent social interactions. Carmen notes the palace lacks intellectually stimulating companions, while the princess praises Carmen's sharp and witty mind. The princess mentions that the heartfelt letter Carmen sent after the banquet deeply touched her and her mother. Winking playfully, Carmen expresses her amazement that such a wonderful event was successfully organized on such short notice. While sipping her tea, the princess reflects on how helpful her previous experience at the palace proved to be. Carmen asks if reasons are needed to visit friends, while the princess notes she wouldn't have worried yesterday. Carmen privately observes that Princess Harcel is incredibly sharp before noting she always seems to ask for favors. Smiling serenely, the blonde princess expresses her sincere desire to find a way to return Carmen's many favors. Carmen lists multiple business sabotages, including false accusations against Madame Hines and resource cuts at the Tower of Sages. Her butler's investigation reveals a trade association link involving a former assistant now working for another noble lady. Princess Harcel listens intently before asking Carmen what specific steps she plans to take regarding the sabotage. Carmen plans to contact family retainers for suppliers, while the princess suggests consulting the Duchess of Hertrea instead. The princess explains that Hertrea's glass specialty and Carmen's past kindness will ensure the Duchess is very proactive. In a quiet moment, Chibi Carmen thanks Richard for his discretion in keeping her complicated past a secret. While examining fabric samples, the princess asks Carmen about the current status of the recently stolen trade goods. Carmen mentions consulting investigator Lord Kyan and her plan to thoroughly examine past civil court legal rulings. Excitedly, the princess insists on joining the visit just to see the investigator's famously handsome face again. Carmen advises her to evaluate the man's professional skills rather than just focusing on his attractive physical appearance. Stylized figures of the princess strike dramatic poses while repeatedly praising the investigator's impressive and handsome looks. Shifting back to serious business, the princess asks what specific assistance Carmen needs from her right now. Carmen takes a nervous gulp, steeling herself before presenting her bold and controversial proposal to the princess.
Carmen proposes a new tax bill targeting Jaden's luxury goods distributed throughout the region of Delia.
Carmen reflects on Eleanor's lace standing out among Jaden's products, viewing the tax increase as an unavoidable necessity. She concludes that a small tax increase is necessary and won't result in a major financial loss. Reclining on the sofa, the princess notes that this tax plan could create an emergency for certain people. Covering her face, Carmen hears the princess praise her clever plan and strategic move against her rivals. The princess suggests Carmen's plan is so effective that she might not even need to intervene personally. A wooden broom sweeps through the freshly fallen snow outside the cold and quiet stone building. A man with long black hair sits on a high-backed chair, letting out a weary and frustrated sigh. He grumbles about traveling all the way to Mount Peruin only to find the item was already stolen. Holding up broom, the green-haired boy Amaro asks why his master is unable to locate the missing object. The man finds it suspicious that the culprit isn't associated with Deverard Trading or the noble Lady Eleanor. Pained by the mystery, the man wonders where on earth the thieves could have hidden the stolen item. He notes the recent earthquake was a ripple effect and warns of terrible consequences if the experiment stalls.
Amaro regretfully informs him that gold extraction has completely stopped because they have officially run out of foxglove.
Forgetting the shortage momentarily, the man decides they should head to the meeting room to discuss their options. The man asks Amaro if he met with Lady Carmen yesterday, and the boy confirms the meeting took place. Noticing Carmen's lingering scent, the man asks if Amaro apologized on his behalf and if they shared tea.
Amaro confirms the details of the meeting with a nervous expression as his master questions him further. Chibi figures show the man calling Carmen kind for her treatment of Amaro, despite her meddlesome nature.
Amaro defends Carmen's character, suggesting that perhaps she is simply a very kind and caring person at heart. As they walk through the corridor, the man asks Amaro if Lady Carmen appeared to be doing well.
Amaro gives a simple affirmative response, confirming that the noblewoman seemed to be in good health and spirits.
Their boots click against the stone floor as the man decides they must prioritize the research discussion first. The black-haired man rejects a flawed hypothesis, surprising the green-haired boy standing beside him. A diverse group of associates gathers in a stone room, urgently asking their master for the correct solution. Standing before his subordinates, the black-haired man orders them to investigate the contents of the finite room. Clasping his hands, the man identifies an unknown enemy who is currently antagonizing the Tower of Sages. The listeners acknowledge their preparedness, noting that certain religious institutions remain oblivious to the looming conflict. The master demands total cooperation from his team, determined to teach their mysterious rivals a harsh lesson.
A strict directive is established, granting the group only 5 days to resolve the entire crisis.
Staring intently, the red-haired woman vows that anyone underestimating a mage's dedication will face severe consequences.
Lord Elon details his efforts to disrupt trading partners, noting how easily their primary rival began to falter.
A chibi figure explains that Lady Erin struggles to accept the collapse of her close social circle.
Carmen, Lord Elon, and Lady Lamona discuss how a noble household survival now depends on another family's grace.
Carmen reflects on her successful sabotage while contemplating Eleanor's unique ability to predict the future.
Lord Elon observes that Eleanor has withdrawn, wondering if she correctly identified their initial plan as reckless.
Lady Lamona acknowledges Eleanor's sharp mind, but believes her rural background leaves her social connections vulnerable. Despite her outsider status, Eleanor's past presence at court demonstrated a competence that commands significant respect.
The three strategists discuss Eleanor's rapid and unprecedented rise within the competitive hierarchy of Deverard Trading. Carmen formally requests Lord Elon to monitor Eleanor while asking Lady Lamona for her continued support.
Though visibly annoyed, the gray-haired woman admits she cannot refuse any request made by Lady Carmen. Lord Elon sinks into deep contemplation, carefully weighing the potential risks and rewards of their current strategy. He speculates that a truly proactive leader like Eleanor would already be working to rebuild her company. Carmen agrees with his assessment, finding it highly suspicious that Eleanor would simply abandon her primary business.
Resting her head on her hand, Carmen wishes she could uncover the secrets hidden within Eleanor's mind.
In a fit of despair, the black-haired Count Leonard clutches his head as his world crumbles. Overwhelmed by mounting financial demands and legal notices, the Count is startled by a sudden, loud knocking.
Countess Leonarde barges into the study, shrieking about the arrival of a representative sent to collect debts.
The Countess is horrified to learn her cherished wedding jewelry is being seized to settle their family's debts. Count Leonarde sneers at his wife, reminding her that her own family's failure caused their current misery. He ruthlessly blames her vanity for their ruin, commanding her to surrender her valuables without further complaint. Trembling with rage, the Countess defends her past investments, claiming they were intended to secure their future. The Count mocks her social climbing, attributing their total failure to her reaching for status beyond her means.
Slamming his desk, the Count insists the disaster is her fault and orders her to raise the funds.
The couple's argument reaches a breaking point as the Countess demands a divorce while the Count refuses alimony. Eleanor calmly prepares for her meal while a blonde maid stands nearby, ready to deliver a report. Anne confirms that Countess Leonard has left her husband and the Count has agreed to the divorce. Eleanor's maid realizes that her mistress has been strategically orchestrating the downfall of her rivals from the start. Shifting her focus, Eleanor asks for an update regarding the secret assignment she previously gave to her maid. Anne reports that a letter reached Marquis Odenard, though she worries about how the recipient will respond.
Eleanor is certain of success, explaining that the Marquis's territorial needs outweigh any concerns over the business collapse.
A dark, intense aura underscores Eleanor's determination to ensure the Marquis finds her proposal absolutely necessary.
A promotional message invites readers to join a translation and editing team via their official Discord server.
Narrative text describes a pirate attack on spice trade ships involving the mystical power of Nocturne.
A man announces the arrival of Lady Leo Windshead while a hand dismissively waves him away. The butler confirms his instructions as Anne stands by, listening to the noblewoman's latest command. Anne responds with a nervous and compliant affirmation to the orders given by her mistress.
Eleanor instructs her staff to monitor the palace specifically for the protection of Prince Richard.
The ornate white doors slam shut with a loud sound, concluding the private meeting.
A man's dark dress shoes click rhythmically against the polished floor of the palace corridor.
Eleanor invites her visitor to enter while calmly taking a slow sip of her tea. A dark-haired man in a patterned vest notes that Eleanor seems surprisingly calm during his visit.
Eleanor observes that unannounced visits from this man have become quite common in her life recently.
Eleanor expresses her welcoming attitude while acknowledging that the man acted in her place.
The black-haired man takes a seat while Eleanor observes him with a calm expression.
The man admits he wanted to avoid involving Eleanor, prompting her to question his feelings.
Eleanor silently reflects on the truth that she has never felt any hatred toward him.
A memory of reaching out to one another surfaces, highlighting a past that remains forgotten.
Confused but determined, the man declares he will not hold back regardless of his misunderstanding.
Eleanor warns the man to be cautious of Carmen, who discards others easily, facing his counter-accusation.
Questioning the man's actions toward Carmen, Eleanor receives a warning about the danger of digging deeper.
Eleanor realizes that the man is fully aware of the secrets she is trying to uncover.
They discuss Count Leonarde funding Prince Otto and the potential silence-breaking intervention of His Highness.
Dismissing the previous topic, Eleanor asks the man what he is actually searching for right now.
The man commands Eleanor to stop her facade, identifying her true nature as a time rewinder.
Walking away, the man promises to find what was hidden and restore everything to its original state. A hand reaches out toward the departing man, desperately pleading for him to wait a moment.
Left alone in the quiet dining hall, Eleanor stands motionless as the man disappears from sight.
The scene shifts to the heart of the Bellac Marquisate within the scenic Irent Valley.
A grand white castle stands prominently against the bright landscape of the Marquisate's ancestral home.
Returning to her family estate, the red-haired Carmen excitedly prepares for her first local winter festival.
Bernard the butler welcomes the noble family back, standing before a line of bowing household staffs.
The travel-weary parents and their daughter greet the loyal butler after their long journey home.
A maid approaches the young mistress, concerned for her health while preparing to deliver urgent news.
Learning of a servant's absence, Carmen decides to play along while asking for more specific details. The distressed maid tearfully explains that family illnesses have delayed the return of their loyal servant. Surprised by the misfortune, Carmen suggests sending medicine and aid to help the struggling family recover.
The household staff is visibly stunned by their young mistress's uncharacteristically kind and generous behavior.
While the maid pleads for mercy, Carmen wonders why the woman is trembling so violently before her.
Carla leads Carmen toward their private rooms, interrupting the interaction with the fearful servant girl.
Turning back, Carmen orders the staff to provide meat and wine for the recovering servant's family.
Carmen remembers her reputation as a ruthless villainess, realizing why her kindness caused such widespread shock.
A maid praises the young mistress's radiant appearance, though Carmen dismisses the compliment as excessive flattery.
Inquiring about Lady Maria's arrival, Carmen learns that the expected guest should appear at any moment.
Carmen asks her maid Varsa for the latest rumors regarding the strange whispers circulating through the castle.
Narrated text explains that the noble's return during the harsh winter snows was not a simple coincidence.
Financial troubles and gambling losses left Baron Triss unable to pay his soldiers, creating a crisis. Unchecked by the Baron, soldiers oppressed local peasants until the young lord's mother decided to intervene.
Lady Maria hired minority tribes to purge the violent thugs who had been terrorizing the villagers.
Carmen reflects on the Baron's childish complaints to her father following Lady Maria's necessary self-defense actions. A trial by combat is established at Irent Castle to settle the dispute between the two parties. Carmen asks the sweating maid if she has ever seen Lady Maria during her time in Delia. The nervous maid claims there are many women with that name, quickly trying to shift the conversation. Carmen promises to avoid her past tantrums, while her maid remains terrified of her childhood volatility. Resolving to fix her mistakes gradually, Carmen plans her next move while reflecting on her reputation. Examining a box of jewelry, Carmen learns that Baron Triss arrived at the castle 3 days ago. Carmen asks for the exact location where the Baron lost his fortune to his gambling addiction.
The maid explains the Baron was swindled by a troupe of bards at a local garden pavilion.
Carmen and Varsa share a look of disbelief, questioning the likelihood of bards swindling a noble. Sighing, the maid dismisses the Baron's claims as the classic excuse of a frustrated, losing gambler.
Carmen grows suspicious, wondering if it is common for traveling bards to frequent such specific locations.
Silhouettes of mysterious bards appear as the maid notes that gambling is ultimately a game for fools. Expressing a desire to meet the Baron, Carmen is told she will see him at dinner tonight.
Carmen smiles with anticipation, her eyes reflecting a plan she finds deeply exciting and promising.
Baron Triss offers a formal bow, acknowledging the presence of the young lady with practiced deference.
Dressed in a grand gown, Carmen silently identifies the man who has arrived at her home. Carmen's father asks if this is Baron Triss's second time meeting his daughter during his visit.
Baron Triss praises Lady Carmen's remarkable accomplishments and expresses his envy as a fellow parent.
Baron Triss rambles about his own children's shortcomings while Carmen and her parents listen with annoyance.
Shifting the conversation, Carmen inquires about the current ages of the Baron's young children this year.
While the Baron dotes on his children, Carmen scolds his gambling habits in her own mind.
Carmen fumes silently over the Baron's irresponsibility, specifically his failure to pay his soldiers' wages.
Attendants bring out a cart holding several silver-covered platters to serve the noble family's meal.
The dinner table is laid out with sliced bread, butter, and a platter of grilled steak.
Carmen enjoys woodcock terrine, but notices the gamey flavor is stronger than she previously remembered.
A maid explains the temporary lack of pepper, highlighting the severe impact of the trade disruptions.
An attendant leans in to whisper that Lady Maria has arrived at the estate for her visit.
Despite being mid-meal, the family agrees to immediately escort their guest into the dining room.
Lady Maria explains her early arrival and her decision to seek a proper room for rest.
Lady Maria stands elegantly in her winter attire, her presence commanding attention within the grand room.
Carmen is visibly stunned, never imagining she would meet Lady Maria again in this specific manner.
Lady Maria raises a glass of red wine, proposing a toast to a generous gentleman's kindness.
Baron Triss notes Lady Maria's high spirits and asks if her son is alone at home.
Lady Maria advises the Baron to worry about his own subordinates instead of her child's welfare.
Maria mentions comforting Pauline, prompting Carmen to ask if she means the disgraced Countess of Leonarde.
As they dine, the group discusses family relations and the Marchioness's absolute influence over social matters.
Lady Maria gazes into the distance, her regal profile highlighted against a decorative, ornate floral frame.
Carmen swallows hard, realizing Maria likely holds a deep grudge against her family for past events.
Carmen recalls that Baron Triss was the one who initially acted rudely toward Lady Maria first.
Walking outside, Carmen discusses whether her family is taking Maria's side after her past actions.
Carmen explains how the Walloon tribe's presence in Maria's territory led to her receiving an invitation. They conclude that Maria was likely invited solely because of her connections to the minority tribe.
Carmen sighs, admitting she wrote so many invitations that she failed to recognize Lady Maria's name. Carmen remembers a woman from her past who was incredibly persistent regarding her connections and money.
Spotting Lady Maria in the distance, Carmen decides it is time to engage the noblewoman directly.
Carmen notes that she would have invited Maria for a walk had she known she was awake.
Carmen offers a cheerful morning greeting to Lady Maria as they meet in the garden.
Surprised by the encounter, Lady Maria asks if the two women always wake up so early.
Carmen jokes about saving candles while Maria credits her habit to serving as the queen's maid. Lady Maria explains she is trying to adopt the queen's habit of walking in the garden daily.
Maria invites Carmen to join her, but asks if the young mistress is already heading back.
Carmen instructs her maid Varsa to guide Lady Maria through the garden for the rest of the morning.
Lady Maria graciously thanks Carmen for her consideration and wishes her a pleasant day ahead.
Golden light fills the grand interior of the castle, highlighting its ornate architecture and high ceilings.
Varsa asks if Carmen plans to spend another winter holed up in the library as she did before.
Carmen is surprised to hear she was once a bookworm, as she has no such memory.
A silhouette reveals Carmen's past of secluding herself in the library and barring anyone from entering.
Curiously, Carmen asks her maid to identify the person currently serving as the castle's librarian.
Varsa explains that Mr. Bernard manages the library because professional librarians are only found in Delia.
Reaching for a book, Carmen asks her maid to summon Bernard to the library for her.
Bernard enters the room and respectfully asks the young mistress what he can do for her.
Carmen asks if anything was found missing or out of place after her last library visit.
Bernard is visibly shocked, his eyes widening as he reacts to the lady's unexpected and pointed question.
Carla whispers that the mistress isn't entirely wrong, which the red-haired Carmen overhears nearby.
Bernard admits he might have overlooked minor details while the brown-haired Carla remains skeptical.
Carmen contemplates that even one missing book would be immediately noticeable in such a collection. Bowing politely, Bernard asks the red-haired young lady if there is anything else she requires. Carmen requests to see past trial records and documents regarding the laws of the territory.
Bernard is stunned by the massive stack of books Carmen intends to review quite quickly.
Carla asks what Carmen is searching for, only to learn she wants self-defense documents. Bernard reacts with visible shock, his expression turning pale as he imagines a terrifying possibility. Frustrated, Carmen clarifies she is searching for records on Lady Maria's case, not her own.
Carla is thrilled, asking if her mistress intends to ensure the complete downfall of Lady Maria.
Looking away, Carmen insists that she simply seeks to uphold justice during the upcoming trial.
Lady Maria stands regally in an elegant gown against a dark and ornate floral background.
Carmen struggles to decipher a difficult ancient language as she continues her intense library research.
Resting her head on a book, Carmen notes how time quickly slips away these days.
Carla looks annoyed, thinking about how all this effort is for a truly detestable person. Carmen is depicted as a symbol of justice, declaring fairness the most important trial element. Carla expresses her skepticism, pointing out that no one is perfect in their pursuit of justice.
Carmen places her hand on a book and asks Carla to copy a specific passage.
Carmen suddenly notices a discrepancy and startles Carla, who asks if her mistress is okay.
Carmen apologizes for her distraction and mentions her plan to rearrange the library's layout. Staring at a display case, Carmen realizes that its current placement is not as remembered. Feeling that she is missing something, Carmen resolves to move the display and investigate further.
A lavish dinner table is set with grilled steak, fresh bread, and fine silverware settings.
Carmen's mother notes her daughter's unusual habit of staying holed up in the library lately. Carmen confirms she moved the display case but found no hidden passages underneath it today.
The Marquis praises Carmen's devotion while her mother asks if he also enjoys reading.
Eating her meal, Carmen thinks the food is tasty but could use a bit more spice. A maid stands in the background with a look of pure astonishment at the family's conversation. Carmen asks if the Walloon people worship gods while recalling the tribe's fierce, painted warriors.
Carmen reflects on the Baron's reputation as a devout believer and why he was called that.
The Marquis addresses his daughter as Carla, questioning her about moving the library furniture and carpet.
Two men are shown moving the heavy display case according to the red-haired lady's instructions.
Carmen smiles and explains she moved it simply because she had a feeling something was hidden. Chibi Carmen studies the library map while her father allows her to rearrange things as desired. Carmen asks her mother if she prefers operas and plays over reading books during her visit. Her mother suggests that Carmen host a gathering and invite acquaintances instead of staying isolated. Narrative text explains that Carmen is not a bookworm despite being holed up in the library. Thoughts speculate if she seeks ancient magic or a love potion to make Richard love her. Carmen realizes there was no need to research poison before being startled by a loud call. Snapping out of her thoughts, Carmen apologizes to her parents and admits she is a little tired. Her mother scolds her for ignoring her advice while they sit at the formal dinner table. A close-up reveals the uncharacteristic dark circles under Carmen's eyes from her secret nightly research.
Her mother insists she socialize more tomorrow as the coming new year will be very busy.
Carmen agrees, noting that a guest will promote new products at the upcoming New Year gathering. The Marquis shouts in anger while Carmen focuses on her meal and remains quiet during dinner. Under a full moon, Carmen wishes for quiet so she can finally enjoy her meal. Text boxes explain the trial's heavy political undertones and the risk of an unfavorable verdict. A man with long hair declares that they will not grovel if they face unjust treatment.
A blonde man discusses politics and the reputation of the Walloon people as exceptional warriors.
Lady Maria intends to use the trial to infiltrate the highest circles of Delia's upper class. Smug Baron Triss watches as the court discusses turning to neighbors during a crisis and the soldiers' deaths. An angry crowd shouts in unison, their silhouettes filled with collective rage and group identity during the trial.
Sir Justice charges the defendant with incitement to murder and several other counts, requesting a formal trial.
Lady Maria asks the Marquis for a chance to defend herself, and Carmen allows her to speak publicly. Sunlight filters through the courtroom's ornate stained glass windows, setting a solemn tone for the upcoming legal proceedings. Standing before a judgmental audience, Lady Maria speaks on the divine blessing of having truly trustworthy neighbors nearby. Maria pivots her argument toward betrayal, causing Baron Triss to recoil with a look of visible, sweating guilt.
As Maria questions double standards, an angry noble labels her a heartless murderer for killing their foreign soldiers.
Maria internally laments how her lands were ruined by Baron Triss's addictions before her people were killed. Sir Justice dismissively argues that the lives of commoners and soldiers cannot be considered legally equal in court.
The courtroom erupts in cheers for the prosecutor's heartless logic while Maria remains isolated and defiant against them.
Legal documents list the heavy gold and silver penalties Maria faces for her alleged conspiracy and various crimes.
The Marquis offers Maria a final opportunity to speak before the court renders its predetermined harsh legal verdict. Maria looks out at the silent audience, questioning if any words could truly change her predetermined tragic fate. Interrupting the gavel's fall, Carmen raises her hand and declares she has something vital to say to everyone. A regal portrait highlights Carmen's calm resolve as she prepares to challenge the ongoing, unfair legal courtroom farce. Carmen holds her hand high, commanding the attention of everyone present within the grand and crowded courtroom hall. The Marquis and his wife are stunned by their daughter's sudden and highly unusual public interruption of court. Holding a law book, Carmen argues that a fair ruling is impossible without both sides making proper assertions. Carmen gazes across the balcony, wondering if Maria simply intended to make a public spectacle of her trial. Carmen offers a cryptic smile, noting the difficulty of providing answers when both sides have such different perspectives.
Sir Justice and his colleagues dismissively sigh, viewing Carmen's intervention as a tiresome and irrelevant bother to them.
A detailed view of a silver and purple crown-like ornament emphasizes the high noble stakes of this trial. Carmen asserts that neither party has successfully established a clear legal stand during the current chaotic courtroom hearing.
Adjusting her glasses, Carmen reminds the assembly that the court's true purpose is to hear actual legal arguments.
Reading from the book, Carmen cites Balek precedent regarding the clarification of rights and demanding proper legal compensation.
Sir Justice stares intensely at the young lady, warning her that the trial is not a mere game.
Carmen explains her intervention is a direct response to the unacceptable level of disrespect shown in the courtroom.
Sir Justice grits his teeth in fury, offended by Carmen's pointed accusation regarding the trial's lack of respect. Carmen points out that Sir Justice has provided only emotional appeals rather than a factual basis for compensation. Maria watches in disbelief as Carmen notes how the defense was nearly lost before an argument even began.
Carmen's parents are easily swayed by her charm, quickly acknowledging her formal objection to the current trial proceedings.
Sir Justice protests loudly, claiming the defendant waived the right to further argument, but his protest fails immediately.
A highlighted passage in the law book explains that a simple complaint does not constitute abandoning an argument.
Carmen notes the Marquise's acknowledgement of more time, leaving Baron Triss looking overwhelmed and visibly shaken by her.
Holding a legal document, Carmen explains the Marquis' power to appoint a legal representative for any chosen defendant. Carmen formally proposes that she, as the Marquis' daughter, act as Maria's temporary guardian and her legal defender.
A heavy silence falls over the vast courtroom as the nobility processes Carmen's unprecedented and bold legal maneuver.
Standing before the judges, Carmen respectfully requests permission to speak on behalf of the defendant, Lady Maria.
A glistening, layered dessert topped with a macaron sits ready for a quiet and necessary afternoon break.
Carmen holds her spoon, looking contemplative while enjoying the sweet treat away from the courtroom's intense public chaos. The scene shifts to a lavish private room where Carmen and Maria sit together for a serious meeting.
Carmen jokingly assures Maria that the tea is not poisoned as she prepares to discuss their upcoming plan.
Maria looks nervous and sweating, thinking that poisoning someone is exactly the kind of thing Carmen would do. Carmen emphasizes the need for mutual trust, asking Maria to place her faith in her current legal strategy.
The two women are glimpsed through a window, surrounded by lush green foliage during their secret afternoon talk.
Maria stares back with a skeptical expression, questioning the very concept of trust between two former noble enemies.
Carmen smiles warmly, explaining that there are many different ways for people to build a trusting, noble relationship.
Carmen discusses Count de Roy's surprising true nature, questioning why his secrets are only coming to light just now.
Maria asks if this is a conspiracy while Carmen links her kidnapping to the recent business harassment cases.
Carmen clarifies she is not suggesting they act as friends immediately. Behind silhouettes, the narrative explains joining forces is necessary to protect their respective friends. Lady Maria notes she did not seek Carmen out merely to avoid defeat.
Maria mentions needing wealthy clients while Carmen considers utilizing an assassin for protection. Text highlights that reputation and Delia relies on guarantees and the weight of words.
Carmen states approval is the most essential element for conducting business in their small society.
Stirring her drink, Carmen reflects on her immediate and pressing need for loyal people.
Carmen believes recommending the Walloons guarantees their skill, even if future conflict with Maria remains possible.
Maria skeptically asks if she is expected to pay people just for conversation. Over a dark chessboard, Carmen wishes she had more time to consider Eleanor's manipulative role.
Surprised, Maria learns there is no immediate need to publicize their settlement.
Maria agrees to the arrangement, prioritizing her own benefit regardless of the circumstances.
The library's wooden door swings open with a sharp sound as a visitor arrives. A maid excitedly announces Milady as she enters the room with an older woman.
Carmen struggles to remember the woman's name until Maria identifies her as Mrs. Dearham. Carmen offers a warm and cheerful welcome back to the returning woman named Rona. As the room comes into focus, Carmen feels her long-forgotten memories slowly resurfacing.
Memories reveal Carmen and Rona once cherished each other deeply despite Carmen's previous harsh threats.
Carmen asks Rona about her surprise, noting her mouth seems to be moving instinctively. Rona observes that Carmen has changed significantly, while Carmen worries about her inability to be real.
Rona expresses regret for being away while Carmen asks about the well-being of Rona's family.
Rona thanks Carmen for the generous gifts of swine wine and food she received.
Carmen encourages the weary traveler to get some rest after her long journey home. Rona reaches into her bag, announcing she has brought the items Carmen previously requested.
A small brown bundle is handed over, presumably containing the secret items Carmen needs.
Carmen smiles triumphantly while holding a decorative silver key before her face.
The Grand Library stands quiet as Carmen prepares to use the key she obtained. Narrative text suggests there was a specific reason for changing the display case's position.
Tucked away inside the showcase drawer, a second ornate silver key is finally discovered. Carmen realizes the showcase was intentionally positioned to point toward a specific magic bookshelf. Carmen uses the key to unlock a heavy, untitled book she finds very strange.
Plummeting through a dark abyss of thorns, Carmen hears a voice saying, "That person will be fine."
A vision of a modern city appears, feeling oddly familiar despite being an unfamiliar world.
Looking at strangers in an alleyway, she realizes she knows much about them without knowing names.
In a hospital, a voice declares an end while promising to take what is being born.
Carmen snaps back to reality and collapses, caught by the maid as she struggles to breathe.
The maid helps the breathless Carmen, who realizes she knows this woman very well.
Text appearing over rippling water notes that a daughter could never forget her own mother's face.
Opening the mysterious book, Carmen is disappointed to find that there is nothing written inside.
Touching the book triggers a flood of memories about a novel she finds tragically unfunny. Reclining on the sofa, Carmen accepts the reality that she has truly become Carmen.
Carmen questions the fate of the original soul that once resided in her current body.
Panic seizes Carmen as she gasps for air, desperately questioning her own true identity. Clutching her head, Carmen reflects on her desperate will to live despite her troubling circumstances.
A dark frame carries the heavy admission of self-loathing regarding her existence in this body. Narrative text discusses the typical tropes of body switch stories and the differences in this reality.
Memories depict the original Carmen as a cruel woman who preys on children and ruins happiness.
Eleanor's kindness is highlighted, contrasting with the original Carmen's attempt to poison her in the past.
Looking at a tea set, Carmen questions the extreme and heartless lengths her predecessor went to.
Shadows show the original Carmen stealing everything from Eleanor and her own mother's true daughter.
Shivering and losing faith in herself, Carmen refuses to accept her current reality while demanding more firewood.
Overwhelmed by heavy sins, Carmen struggles to breathe while acknowledging that the original owner was a wicked woman. Carmen identifies with the wicked woman who ignored respect and prioritized her own feelings above all other people. Lying in a daze, Carmen admits there were many days she could not distinguish between dreams and reality.
A warm fireplace crackles inside a lavishly decorated room, providing a stark contrast to Carmen's previous internal coldness.
Carmen's eyes widen in sudden surprise as she snaps back to the present moment within her luxurious bedroom.
Awakening in her bed, Carmen hears a soft voice asking if she has finally regained her consciousness.
Carmen calls out to her mother and feels deeply moved as a gentle hand caresses her cheek.
Noticing Carmen's hoarse voice, the mother instructs her to drink a warm beverage she has just prepared. Carmen takes a large drink, but she is immediately shocked by the unexpected and intense taste of it.
Coughing from the spice, Carmen learns her mother added pepper, noting that such spices are currently incredibly expensive.
The mother scolds Carmen for collapsing after spending too much time holed up in the library recently. Staring at her cup, Carmen reflects on a life spent hurting others and realizes the library is blameless. The mother continues her scolding, claiming Carmen never admits fault and remains as selfish as she ever was. Carmen smiles warmly, recalling a lesson from her mother in the real world about everyone being selfish.
Embracing her daughter, the mother warns that wiping tears with a silk sleeve will leave a permanent stain.
The mother offers a tender smile, expressing that she does not mind the ruined silk for her daughter.
In a playful moment, Carmen tells her mother she loves her, prompting an affectionate questioning of her smile.
Hugging her daughter tightly, the mother wonders what has caused Carmen to become so unusually affectionate lately.
An abstract background emphasizes the mother's concern as she reflects on the plight of her poor daughter.
Flashbacks depict Carmen's past life as Rana, recalling the guilt of her mother seeing her work while sick.
Memories show a younger Rana expressing pain through anger while her mother repeatedly apologized for her suffering.
Narrative text suggests that Carmen is being punished for her previous life as a thorough and heartless villain. Above an image of Earth, text explains Carmen is realizing the beauty of things she once heartlessly destroyed.
Viewing shattered memories of her family, Carmen begs for forgiveness and vows never to cause someone pain again.
Tears streaming down her face, Carmen desperately asks to be guided away from ever hurting anyone else again.
Startled by the sudden outburst, the mother asks if Carmen is in pain or why she is crying.
A warm light bathes the room as the mother and daughter share a long, silent, and emotional embrace.
The mother asks who made Carmen cry, while Carmen softly denies that anyone specifically caused her current distress.
Carmen thinks of Lady Maria, but the mother notes it wouldn't be surprising if Maria were the culprit. Reaching a firm resolution, Carmen announces her plan to return to Delia once she has fully recovered.
The scene shifts to the manor exterior as the mother mentions winter travel and an invitation from the queen.
Turning back with a worried expression, the mother urges Carmen not to push herself while she is unwell. Carmen insists she will be fine soon, determined not to waste any more time while feeling exhausted. Holding her mother's hand, Carmen reaffirms that this is her life and she must take control of it.
The scene transitions to a brightly lit room filled with books, sewing machines, and elegant furniture. A dressmaker asks if Carmen finds herself cute in the mirror, and Carmen confidently agrees with a smile.
Inspecting the fabric, Carmen asks if the dress can be completed by the day after tomorrow without extra help. With fire in her eyes, the dressmaker passionately declares her capability to finish the task on her own. Carmen smiles warmly, deciding to leave the creation of the next fashion trend entirely to the skilled dressmaker.
A young man with green hair and a formal bow greets Carmen respectfully as she arrives outdoors.
Carmen gracefully extends her gloved hand toward the young man, accepting his assistance during their walk together.
Dark silhouettes of various characters appear under text stating that something must be corrected in their current lives.
A silver-haired girl laughs cheerfully while standing beside the green-haired boy in a sunlit garden setting.
Dressed in a white gown and fur shawl, Carmen prepares for her journey while looking calm and resolute.
Carmen walks toward a distant, massive clock tower with her companions, enjoying the beautiful and clear weather. Gazing at the impressive structure, Carmen thinks that visiting this place is a perfect way to change her pace. The companions discuss the tower's history, noting how it expanded each time a new disciple's home was merged. The massive gates of the clock tower begin to open automatically as the group approaches the grand entrance.
Carmen asks who will open the gate, and her companion explains it functions automatically for magicians and pass holders.
Carmen marvels at the magic door, delightedly comparing its function to a modern automatic entrance.
Emero mentions that he heard she gives lovely names to different types of magic.
Carmen asks if he heard that from his master, and Emero confirms that he did.
Carmen complains that his master always says unnecessary things while looking away in slight embarrassment.
Radiant golden lights shimmer throughout the grand hallway as the group ventures deeper inside.
Magical sparks dance through the air, highlighting the opulent and enchanted architecture of the tower.
Gazing at the floating wisps, Carmen asks who summoned them to light the way.
Amaro explains the spirits are curious about her, though they oddly avoid approaching him. Amaro politely gestures forward, requesting that Carmen follow him through the brightly lit corridor. Carmen looks around in amazement, noting that the building's layout is truly unique and impressive. Carmen asks why candles are used instead of wisps, and Amaro explains spirits dislike magic. Carmen laughs, recalling the nature of spirit users while thinking of those she has known.
A flashback reveals a black-haired spirit user described as being an incredible and amazing magician.
Turning back to her, Amira repeats his request for Carmen to follow him forward.
The group navigates through a series of grand doors leading into even more magnificent halls.
Entering a massive chamber, Carmen is awestruck by the towering and vibrant stained glass windows. Carmen feels momentarily dizzy from the sight. Emero notes that everyone reacts with surprise initially.
Carmen admires the beautiful sunlight through the glass just before being startled by a voice.
Tan greets her, noting that her dramatic reactions to his presence never seem to get old. Carmen blushes intensely as Tan leans in close, catching her completely off guard once again.
Carmen asks him how many times she must tell him not to scare her like that.
Tan admits he scares her on purpose because seeing her reaction is simply too much fun. Tan offers a warm and handsome smile as he enjoys the playful banter with his guest. Carmen huffs in feigned annoyance, turning her head away while still looking slightly flustered. Emerald looks on with a sullen expression, feeling ignored as if they forgot his presence. Tan decides it is time for them to move on and reach their intended destination. Carmen asks if his office is nearby, but he explains only authorized staff enter the labs. Narrative text discusses how mages who reach a certain level of power also acquire great wealth. Tan explains that top mages usually have enough money to buy out all their business partners. Carmen reflects that this is her first real conversation with Tan since Count Leonardo's downfall. Carmen apologizes for causing trouble. Tan insists the tower's attackers are the only ones at fault. Carmen wonders if he is trying to comfort her, noting his hidden, kind, and thoughtful side.
Carmen asks if he has been working in the lab this entire time during their walk.
Tan notices her interest and teases her about being remarkably curious about him lately. Carmen quickly claims she was only making polite conversation and denies having any deeper curiosity. Tan expresses mock sadness, claiming he was happy when he thought she was actually concerned.
Carmen coughs awkwardly and asks if he frequently says such teasing things to other people.
Tan leans toward her with a knowing look, stating he only speaks that way to her. Carmen feels a strange flutter, warning herself not to fall for his charming side character persona. A vision of the heroine and her destined suitors highlights the expected roles of secondary characters. Seated across from each other, Tan asks what she specifically wanted to know regarding magic. Carmen sits quietly, looking down at her hands as she prepares to ask a serious question. Looking into her teacup, Carmen asks if there is any known way to turn back time. Tan is visibly stunned by her inquiry, his eyes widening as a heavy silence falls. Carmen repeats her firm desire to know how such a powerful magical feat could be achieved. Carmen waits for a response with a resolute expression, prepared for whatever the answer might be. Carmen reiterates her question with unwavering focus, demanding to know how to manipulate time. A typewriter and various sealed letters sit on a marble desk, signaling a shift in focus. Carmen remains silent and patient while waiting for Tan to address her impossible magical request. Tan sits back with an intense and serious gaze, silently contemplating the weight of her question. Tan intensely questions Carmen's reasons for wanting to know about such advanced magic. Carmen resolves to be honest, realizing her trust in Tan outweighs her hesitation. Seated in an ethereal void, Tan confirms that her question is indeed quite dangerous. Tan leans back casually, curious about what sparked her sudden interest in time magic. Clenching her hand, Carmen explains that the matter concerns her own survival and others. Tan remains unconvinced, finding her vague explanation insufficient to warrant a proper magical answer. Carmen prepares herself for a difficult conversation, intending to reveal the most critical details. Carmen is momentarily overwhelmed as she visualizes the heroine's past role as a villainess.
A focused shot of Carmen emphasizes her internal conflict as she prepares her next words.
Floating clocks emphasize Tan's revelation that time has actually been reversing for quite some time.
Tan casually admits his awareness, leaving Carmen completely stunned that he already knew the truth. Looking away, Tan notes that he simply hadn't expected her to bring the topic up.
Tan asks if she's confusing time magic with basic restoration, much to Carmen's silent annoyance.
Tan demonstrates simple restoration magic while Carmen clarifies she is discussing much larger chronological shifts.
Carmen confirms her focus is on the repetitive reversal of time occurring within their world.
Carmen explains her theory was based on observation, which Tan finds surprisingly analytical and impressive.
Tan chuckles at the irony, seemingly finding her independent discovery of the loop quite amusing. Tan reveals he reached the same conclusion, much to the aspiration of a pouting Carmen.
Carmen suddenly worries that Tan's focus on the loop stems from a preoccupation with Eleanor. Tan turns the question back on her, asking what specific anomalies she managed to observe. Tan clenches his fist while Carmen watches him, unsure of what he is about to reveal. Visuals of an ancient device explain how sages recorded the world's energy and spotted anomalies.
Carmen realizes the recorded data proves time turned back without being tied to Eleanor specifically. Tan confirms her interpretation, noting that the data is clear to those who can read it.
Carmen stares at complex digital patterns, but Tan clarifies the panel has no actual secret code.
Carmen feels mentally exhausted, finding the technicalities of Tan's explanations far too complex to follow.
Tan explains the device is specialized for experts and prepares to show her its inner workings.
The duo enters a vast cosmic dimension representing the perfectly balanced space within the machine.
The sheer scale of the void fills Carmen with an overwhelming sense of existential dread.
Tan reaches out and takes Carmen's hand, offering her a grounding connection in the void. Carmen is startled by the touch, her fear briefly replaced by a different kind of tension. A glowing orb illuminates the dark expanse as they navigate the depths of the calibration panel. Tan's calm presence stands out against the backdrop of the shimmering, starry, magical environment.
Carmen reflects on her status as a villainess, doubting someone as brilliant as Tan would care. Carmen looks down at her hands, struggling with her growing feelings for the powerful magician. A vivid fantasy of a romantic kiss flashes through Carmen's mind, which she immediately tries to suppress.
Memories of their time together fuel her resolve to keep her emotions hidden from him.
Despite her internal conflict, Carmen feels a strange sense of freedom within this isolated magical space.
Carmen watches Tan closely, her eye reflecting his image as she searches for any hidden meaning. Tan speaks her name softly, his gentle expression further breaking down her emotional defenses. Tan repeats her name, his soft gaze remaining fixed on her as the atmosphere shifts.
Tan asks about her fear. Carmen worries that honesty will shatter this temporary private world.
Snapping his fingers, Tan summons a comfortable couch and reassures her of their current safety.
Carmen notices magical sparks converging, expressing concern that the lights might collide and cause damage. Tan raises his hand, explaining that they are witnessing harmless recordings that cannot affect reality.
Carmen pleads for a simpler explanation, finding his high-level magical theories too difficult to grasp. Tan points toward the heavens to illustrate his point about the nature of recorded time. Brilliant cosmic clouds illustrate how the record of time exists entirely independent of time itself.
Carmen realizes that while everything else resets during a reversal, this specific record remains intact. Carmen asks how to halt the cycle. Tan explains it involves fulfilling specific conditions or objects.
Tan explains time magic breaks once the user's hidden goal is finally achieved.
Carmen imagines Eleanor's wedding, wondering if she's being pushed out of the story.
Carmen expresses concern that Eleanor might rewind time again if her plans fail. Tan firmly denies the possibility of another rewind as he stands beside his chair. Carmen questions the conditions of the magic while inviting Tan to sit beside her. Tan explains time's absolute limit while noting Carmen's quick grasp of the complex situation. Tan observes the strained calibration panel, puzzled by Lady Van's seemingly unaffected mental state. Carmen notes how naturally Tan uses Lady Van's name while her silhouette looms ominously. Tan emphasizes that global time reversal is a feat considered theoretically impossible for any mage. Tan explains that such massive spells require a significant offering to bridge the magical gap. A confused Chibi Carmen struggles to understand the dark concept of magical offerings. Tan suppresses his distraction over Carmen's cuteness to explain the harsh nature of offerings. Sacrifices for such magic can include blood, life, dreams, happiness, or even one's soul. Carmen leans in close, asking how happiness can be sacrificed, leaving Tan visibly flustered. Tan describes a future of failure and hatred as the price for offering happiness.
Carmen is stunned by the weight of the offering, sensing a deep, desperate regret.
The duo sits in the vast void, contemplating the profound regrets driving the cycle.
Golden gears grind together as Tan reveals the only method to fix the timeline.
Tan explains that realigning the gears of time requires introducing a completely unrelated element. Like repairing a broken teacup with gold, a new element must bridge the between the gaps. As a sage, Tan must find this catalyst before the world reaches its end.
Tan feels the weight of the task while Carmen interrupts his thoughts with a question.
Carmen asks how Eleanor accomplished the rewind, a mystery Tan admits he shares.
Tan is momentarily captivated by Carmen's honest and straightforward expression during their serious talk.
Watching Carmen's radiant smile, Tan silently acknowledges that his heart now belongs to her. Tan enjoys the moment but reveals the existence of an artifact capable of such magic.
A legendary book sits on a pedestal, identified as the source of the power.
The scene shifts as the pedestal stands firm, hinting at the artifact's immense importance.
Carmen's eyes widen in recognition as the legendary Book of Beginnings is finally named.
Carmen steps outside in a beautiful new dress, satisfied with her choice for the day. A voice calls out to Carmen, catching her attention as she walks through the garden. Carmen turns and greets the blonde prince with a bright and welcoming smile. The prince compliments Carmen's appearance, noting how warm and beautiful she looks today.
Carmen laughs joyfully at the prince's praise, feeling flattered by his kind words.
A small pink-haired girl excitedly leaps into the scene to greet the group. A pink-haired boy joins the girl, both children appearing delighted to see Carmen.
The children cheer happily, calling Carmen their big sister Carla as they approach her.